Mikel Arteta's future has been at the centre of this week's news, and with talk of an exit now quashed and talk of a new contract on the table, we want to hear from you listeners about what your thoughts are around giving the Spaniards a new deal. Hello and welcome to the Gooner Talk, back again with you guys for another episode of what is the Arsenal phone-in show, the show in which we get you listeners on with an opportunity to have a chat about a different topic. And today is all about Mikel Arteta and specifically his future at the club, which I know is often a cause for plenty of discussion and chats and conversation and debate as well. So this could be fun. This could be quite interesting. And I'm looking forward to speaking to a whole range and host of people to get their views on where we stand with Mikel Arteta, with Arsenal currently, before tonight's Premier League matches, of course, sitting second in the table, 2 points behind Liverpool as we speak and record at 5 o'clock on Wednesday afternoon. I'm looking forward to this one. I should probably give you kind of an outline of where I am and ask the question of what we're going to ask. For me, it seems that we are moving inevitably towards Mikel Arteta signing a brand new contract at the club. He's been at the club since, of course, December 2019 and is going into what will be his fifth summer to kind of take on the rest of the transfer needs that this club has, and then we move into his fifth full season as Arsenal manager, with expectations, of course, always rising. Last season saw those expectations rise to a level in which I've never really seen, especially not in my adult life, at least, with Arsenal challenging for the title for the first time in what felt like an absolute age, and now the expectations are to do that successively, season upon season. And Arteta's ambitions, certainly from my perspective at least, feel like that is what he wants to try and achieve, is to get Arsenal competing and challenging and ultimately winning titles as well. And I think that at the moment, at least, where we sit right now, he is indeed the right coach to take us on that direction. I see us on a pathway forwards towards those goals. At the moment, don't necessarily see a different pathway to get there quicker, or feel like the pathway that we're on is taking us away or is never going to eventually reach that destination at the moment either. So if you would like to get involved with today's phone-in show, the rules are very simple. You need to be over the age of 18, of course, have a webcam. You need to click the link in today's video description, or the one that, of course, I'll be spamming the chat box with to get involved in. We'll try and get as many people on as we can. Often what we see is people that join the stream sooner certainly get the opportunity to talk, usually with people joining in quite frequently later on in the shows as the show picks up greater traction. So if you call now, you will get on the show. That's what I can tell you right now. So the links are available in the description. So please do get involved in the show. Without further ado, we'll bring on our first caller, who was very quick to get involved, and that is Leo. Leo, how you doing, my friend? You good? You well?
Yeah, I'm fine. Doing good.
Good stuff. Glad to hear. Where are you joining us from? I know you've joined us before, but let us know where you're joining us from.
Germany.
Germany. Lovely stuff. And tell me how you're feeling about your compatriot Jurgen Klopp leaving Liverpool.
I mean, it saddens me as a football fan, but I
Mm.
think from his personal standpoint, it's the only right decision if he feels that he hasn't got the energy anymore. Like, if you think about it, he has now 24 years, 23 years of consecutive high level coaching in him,
Mm.
and he's in his mid 50s. Maybe it's the right time to take a break at least.
Yeah, I think that I absolutely empathise with his view of the energy that he's used during his time at Liverpool, and why it's difficult to continue in this manner. But we move towards the topic in which we've come on to discuss today. What is it about this topic that's made you want to ring in and give your view on, and what is that view ultimately as well?
I think I want just want to put some rational perspective on it,
Mm.
because, like, from an emotional standpoint, I think every Arsenal fan is going to say, yes, please keep him, please, for the love of God, keep him. Um, since he is an ex-captain, he lives this club obviously, and he puts everything he has into this club. And from a fan's perspective, from an emotional perspective, I'm giving him a new contract, give him a blank check, let him do whatever he wants. Um, but if you think about it rationally, I think we need to pump the brakes on that.
Mm.
Since on the one hand, there's the market, who is who's gonna succeed him? Who's on the market that would be interesting for Arsenal if we don't extend him? Because if we don't extend him, he's gone in summer and he's going to Barcelona. I think there's no debate about that. So who could succeed him? Roberto De Zerbi would be the first name probably to pop up. Xabi Alonso would be another one, but I don't think he would do that to the Liverpool fans. So from that standpoint, yes, we should keep him. So if we think about he's his 5th year in charge now, and what has he to show for? 2 8th place finishes, a 5th place finish, a 2nd place finish, and 1 FA Cup. And if you think about that from a club's perspective that has the aspiration to always play Champions League, to always challenge for a title, that's just not enough. And you
Right.
can put in the argument that he had a bad situation and a bad squad, but other managers have come in and done the same thing in less time.
Who?
Emery, Klopp,
Emery's
Mourinho.
not done anything yet, it's worth pointing out.
I mean, to take Aston Villa from basically relegation to a top 4 challenge in a year, basically, I think that on itself counts as an achievement. I mean, with any other club,
Okay.
probably not.
Well, I think it's interesting. I mean, Aston Villa, in terms of, if you look at their squad, and of course their new American backers, which have enabled them to spend a lot of money on that squad that Unai Emery has obviously built. You talk about the 8th, 5th, 2nd, which is the trajectory. Just tell me, if you're going in a direction, if you're going from 8th, 5th to 2nd, what direction are Arsenal going in?
I mean, I think that depends how the league unfolds. I think we're on a good path right now, and I think at the end of my argument, I come to the conclusion we should extend him, but
Right.
under some scrutiny. So he is under. He has to win something in the next. Let's not say this season, but he has to win something of substance in the next season, and that means Champions League or the league.
So he has to. So who's your favourites for those competitions this and next season?
I think we lack the experience and
Well, who's your favourite for the Premier League this season? Who was your favourite at the start of the season? And who would you be your
always going to be Manchester City. It's
right?
like
So what you're
Germany.
saying is, if Arteta doesn't overachieve and achieve beyond what your expectations of him are, he has to go.
I mean, he has to step out of Guardiola's shadow. That's the thing he has to do now, because he is perceived, and I think rightfully so, at the moment as Guardiola light. So he's doing a very similar thing stylistically and from his leadership perspective as Guardiola's doing. And the step he has to take now in his next 1.5 years or 2 years is to step out of that shadow and do his own thing. And the logical step would then be to overperform, if you want to put it that way, but to challenge City in a substantial way and to finish that challenge, not like last season.
I understand where you're coming from. By the way, I agree about the scrutiny always. A manager has to be under scrutiny. That's never a question. No one is beyond criticism. No one is beyond not being scrutinized. What I struggle with though is the expectation that if Arteta does not beat Man City or Liverpool to a title, and it's interesting that you didn't include the FA Cup in those either, because for me I struggle with that, because the FA Cup is a major trophy. And go on.
Yeah, well, I think yes, the FA Cup is a major trophy, but it doesn't hold the same esteem as a Champions League title or
Right.
a Premier League title, since every major club from the Premier League pumps the brakes in the FA Cup, at least for the first few rounds. That's why you see some favorites get kicked out in the first few rounds, and that competition doesn't get serious until the semi-final or the quarterfinal, depends on your draw. Whereas the Champions League and the Premier League are non-stop from beginning to end. You have to deliver on top quality level, and I think a top manager, which Arteta obviously aspires to be and is on a traction to be, has to deliver in that kind of challenge.
I understand the the reticence about the FA Cup sometimes. I think that almost all teams, bar Man City, and that's only because they've got a joke of a squad, available to them, do tend to kind of drop players out and rotate for those early rounds of the FA Cup. I think that's basically because of the demands that are on Premier League teams at the top end of the Premier League table, because they're involved in the Champions League, because they're involved in European competitions as well. But I struggle always when people kind of demean the FA Cup and don't necessarily rate it. Like I see Arteta's critics often say he's won nothing during his career. And I'm like, well, that's not true, because he's won the FA Cup, which is a really important trophy that he's won. And I also struggle with the criticism that they say he won it with Emery's squad, because I'd argue that's an even more impressive achievement to do it with players that aren't necessarily the ones that you want. You've been able to succeed with that squad. I do agree with the scrutiny, absolutely. But the expectation to expect Arteta to win a Champions League or to win a Premier League in this or next season to save his job, otherwise anything else is a sacking, is what I can't get on board with. Because if you I'll lay out to kind of end this section with yourself, Leo. Thanks for calling in, by the way. Just to end it with some final words. If you were to try and convince me or anyone else that a Champions League or a Premier League in this or next season is the only way Arteta should stay in his job, how would you justify that to me?
Just with his tenure, he's in 2 years' time, he's going to be at the club for 7 years, and any other manager that had that kind of trust and leeway from the owners has to justify that. So Klopp took 4 years to win his first Champions League, 5 years to win his first Premier League. That would be, I think he is the one that you should measure Arteta against, since he is the only manager aside from Guardiola who is in his own league because he can spend ridiculous amounts of money. That is the one he has to be measured up against. And if he can't deliver one of those in almost all the time that Klopp even had, like Klopp is going to finish on 9 years at Liverpool, and if Arteta finished 7 years without a Premier League title and without a Champions League title, then you at least you have to question. I don't think you have to sack him all the way, but you have to question him, since we can't predict how the Premier League is going to unfold, what's going to happen with the Saudi Arabian investments and things. But I think you have to seriously then question his ability to win titles, which is, as he himself always says, is the only thing you get measured by.
So in conclusion, at the moment, we're renewing him, and then we're going to assess him in the next, this and next season, to see what happens. Leo, thank you for your time. I think you raised some fair points during the show.
Have a good one.
Appreciate your time, Leo. Make sure you give Leo plenty of love in the chat box. I think that was a fair discussion on the manager. We're going to move on to our next caller. Amir is coming on next. Let's get Amir on. How you doing, Amir? You good, Joel?
Doing well. How you doing?
Yeah, not bad, mate. Not bad. I believe it's good to put a face to the name. I recognise your name from the chat box. And
right, yeah, I've almost come on a couple of times before, but I thought there was a few conversations happening in the chat. I just thought I needed to have a say.
Go for it, man. I'm enjoying this. So tell me how you're feeling about this topic.
I mean, I'm 100% Arteta needs to get a new deal. Like, definitely, kind of no question.
Really? No question at all.
No question at all. Like, honestly, like I remember it from. I remember the days sort of just before Wenger came in, and we were hovering around. We had a few sort of mid-table finishes, or 1 or 2 mid-table finishes. We were around 5th. Then Wenger came in. We got 3rd, and we had that sort of gradual increase and started becoming kind of competitive like we are now. And then obviously the dark days of Wenger, where nothing was really happening, and we were scoffing at 4th place. And now we're kind of back at the table again, and it feels like people are maybe forgetting, forgetting where we were in sort of around the COVID times. We were 8th twice, and it wasn't a very nice time. We had a bit of a toxic squad. We didn't know whether we were coming or going. And I think, with Leo on the previous call, I sort of, when he was saying about, I don't really agree with the whole.
I think he raised some fair points, to be fair.
Second,
I would disagree with that. I think that to say you're measuring on 8th, 5th, second, and then wherever we finish this. I think the first 8th has always got a bit of an asterisk next to it because obviously he took over half through the season and won an FA Cup during that campaign. The following season was, of course, the COVID season, which Liverpool utilised and won a title with. We sadly couldn't take advantage of in the way that we might have wanted to. And then the following season, of course, we competed for a Champions League place, which no one had us pegged for. Most people had us down as 6th or 7th, and we finished nearly 4th. And then obviously the season after that, you challenge for a title that no one is expecting Arsenal to do, and then raises the expectations, of course, to challenging for a league again and successively. But what I would say, Amir, what I'll challenge you with Leo's points, is I think what is fair to say is that when we get to kind of obviously next season will be the 5th full season, the season after that will be the 6th full season, which if we give Arteta a new deal, he's going to be managing into his 5th, 6th, potentially 7th full seasons. If he wasn't to win anything in terms of a title or in terms of a Champions League, I think then there'd be plenty for fans to say, maybe that is enough time.
Yeah, totally. And that's exactly where sort of I agree with like the last call. Like it was, I think on paper, and if you compare it to Klopp, like at this point, we should start to see something. We should start to see like a major honour. I think he's been a bit unlucky as well because like Man City have suddenly clicked into like overdrive beyond what we thought they could even become, winning like what they did last season. Liverpool being like the team that they've been the last few years. And it just kind of feels like he's been a little bit unlucky with how competitive it actually is at the moment. Because maybe in another time, we may have won the league last year, or there may have been an opportunity to do something. And I think like looking ahead to the next 2 years, like I sort of kind of do half agree with the idea that next couple of seasons, we kind of need to see some kind of honour, I think a major honour. But then like it's difficult. Like, like I say, Man City probably are the favourites this season and next season. So where is that honour? But it's just, you know what I mean? It almost feels like we've got to kind of start getting something down on paper.
I mean, if Arteta establishes you as a title challenger, and then we recognise over the course of, say, last season, this season, if you signs a new deal, next season, the season after, and you don't win, you have to then start to question, is this as far as Arteta can take you as a manager? And is going to a different coach what's going to take you to that next step?
Yeah, totally. Yeah, exactly that. And I just don't think we're there yet. Like, I think he's earned the right to kind of take us into those next phases, no matter however long that's going to take. Hopefully, it's more of a short-term thing. But I just think what he's given, the way he's turned the club around, re-engaged the fans, the atmosphere, the sort of feeling around the club's been great. He's raised our expectations. So maybe we are just a victim of our own success a little bit now, and it's a testament to him that he's under this much scrutiny because he's done so well, right? Like he's kind of brought our expectations up, and now we're judging him at a much higher standard, and that's kind of a testament to what he's done. So
I think what the really hard point of view to challenge is the point of view that Arteta deserves the next deal to see if he can win the title or a Champions League within the next 2, and including this and on top of that, this season as well. That's the point of view I'm think listeners and callers are going to struggle to come up with an argument to challenge. Do you think that's probably fair?
Yeah, I don't, and I think it's it's just the nature of football, isn't it? The immediacy is what everyone wants, and I want it, you want it. We definitely want to win something big in the next couple of years, but I just think you've got to look beyond that, and you're going to look at sort of how the players respond to him and the things you hear, like how the players talk about him and how they learn from him and the unity that he's kind of built. I just think there's a lot more to him and what he's brought to maybe what we see. And obviously, as fans, it's now, trophy. But actually, the context of it isn't quite that easy, I don't think. I think, for me, definitely, it's not a question whether he should get a new deal or not. Just let's hopefully see some conversion, in the next sort of like 2 to 3 seasons, let's give him 3 seasons. 3 seasons to win a major trophy would be my kind of benchmark.
Yeah, I think a Premier League title or a Champions League title in either 24-25 or 25-26, if that's not been secured, I think that is probably proving. And especially if we regress in those years as well, is probably a fair time frame to say, I think he probably has taken us as far. as he
And it's
can.
actually, even just staying still at the moment in the Premier League feels like almost
Progression in some ways, because you're establishing yourself as a title challenger.
Yeah, and you see how competitive it is. Villa sort of, within touching distance, even Spurs, not far behind. There's like 5-6 teams every year that could finish in the top 4, and being like an established regular in that. I know people probably don't want to hear it, but it is a win as well, in my opinion. But yeah, so
I mean, it's been an absolute pleasure to put a face to name, first of all, and I hope that you call in for another show.
For sure. Appreciate it. Cheers, Tom.
Thanks, mate. Speak to you soon. Much appreciate for Amir in the chat, showing plenty of love, please. Valeria says, for Tom, do you think the community... Sorry, for Tom in the community, do you think if Mikel Arteta had won more domestic cups, like another Carabao Cup or an FA Cup, and maybe the Europa League, would we have a little bit more patience for those kind of Champions League or Premier League honours? And I think the answer is yes. If he had have done better in those tournaments and maybe picked up another trophy on the domestic level or the Europa League, I think certainly there'd be more patience for him than there currently does exist. Alistair is our next caller. Alistair, how you doing, mate? You good? You well?
Yeah, not bad. Sorry about
I can't hear you for some reason.
Oh, sorry, I had my finger over the hole. That's why.
That'll be the reason. How you doing, mate?
Sorry about the background. I'm renovating, so I'm in the middle of decorating and stuff like that. So
you go into plenty of pubs in London, mate, and it looks exactly the same. So I wouldn't complain too much about that.
So going into a pub in London hurts me quite a lot when it comes to paying for beer. So I don't do that right.
Indeed, you're not wrong. Tell me where you're at with this conversation, mate.
I think people are going to see. I think people haven't thought that Arteta's negotiating a new contract, and it's quite good that he's doing it right now, because obviously he's negotiating what he wants in his pay packet and his thing. But there's another thing that they want. They want to know if they can win, and they want to know what transfer budget they've got coming to. So him actually negotiating now, and the club wanting him, this is like, well, what are you going to give me in the summer? What resources have I got in the summer? And because the money's one thing for them, obviously for managers, but Arteta's, you can tell he's a winner. He wants to win. He's got it in him. He's not going to stop at Arsenal if he doesn't think he can progress his career, and he wants to win. I think that's why Barcelona is a no-go, because at the moment Barcelona's, he'd go back to square one like he was with Arsenal.
So if it was Real Madrid or Bayern knocking at the door, do you think it would be a different story?
I don't know. I mean, it could be, but it could be if he doesn't think Arsenal have got that ambition to go further than what they are, and because I think he's a person that if he went from Arsenal now thinking that he might think he's failed at Arsenal and he wants to see at Arsenal. So if he goes on to Real Madrid, if he won a Champions League, and hopefully he wins one, and he won something, maybe he might go on to Real Madrid after that, because he says, well, I've done the Premier League now, like how Pep's done it, and how he moved around the Spanish league, and then he went to German league, and I think he's got pride in himself that he wants to do it with Arsenal, and if Arsenal show him ambition, and that's why I think it's quite important that he's negotiating now and not waiting until the summer, because people think you wait until summer. In summer, I want him concentrating on, and I do, not concentrating on his contract. You want to concentrate on getting, the next best players, and stuff like that. We don't want to be negotiating his contract.
It's a really interesting point, that, because a lot of people have raised the argument that no, we should wait until the end of the season, see where we finish, and then make a judgment on Arteta's deal. But I think the reality of the situation is that you can't do that really in the world of football. Like, when do we really see managers announce their new contracts? They don't tend to be at the end of seasons. They're usually announced mid-season.
Yeah, and I think it's. I think it's the same with, they've said it with Klopp, haven't they? People questioned why they brought it out now, and I think a lot of that to do is to do with to stop it from leaking, and it's them that get to release the news, if you know what I mean, and rather it coming from a leaking, because it'll probably leak eventually. But I think managers, they want to know what's coming in the summer. There's so many managers that are out there that that don't get the resources, and they just move on, don't they? You look at Ange. If Ange, who unfortunately I do actually quite like Ange. I don't want to like him.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Trust me, I'll send you some clips, mate, and I'll make you not like him anymore. Don't worry.
But if Tottenham have got to be careful with him, because if they don't show ambitions for him, he's probably just going to walk somewhere else. And that's what Arsenal have got. For me, it's not about the manager. I'm not an Arteta in or an Arteta out. I hate this Arteta in out, Arteta out.
So do I.
Because for me, if there's a better manager out there and we can get him, we go get him. But I don't see another manager that's not going to be a project manager like Arteta.
Why aren't you in favour of, if I throw to you Chelsea and say Chelsea have won 2 Champions Leagues in the last 10 to 15 years, they've won a number of Premier League titles, obviously countless cups, and they've done that by hiring and firing managers. Why doesn't that appeal to you after seeing what Chelsea have done with it?
Because they're a club with a blank checkbook.
Sure.
They have, so is City. They've both got blank checkbooks. People keep forgetting about that. We've been paying off the stadium for a very long time. We've been paying off, building the new all the facilities that we've got, and we are in that position now where we are now because of what we did, and Chelsea. The one team I absolutely hate over everyone. I didn't used to not like them. It's just what they do to football. They're just anti-football, and I respect Man City because they try to play football, but Chelsea, I just think they're just, I just think they're cheese. I know Man City. I know Man City have got those things, but they try to play this pure football, and I really like that. I like the fact that try to play attacking football. Although I do think it's a bit boring, because it's just them all the time. But Chelsea have they've had a blank checkbook, and that they can do what they haven't got that checkbook. If we had that checkbook, then maybe we could sack managers all the time, but then we'd be having problems with FFP. If we're sacking managers all the time, we haven't got. You're paying compensation to the manager all the time. Then where's your money for to go out and recruit all the time? And then you've got a new project every time when a new manager comes in, and all the managers they've ever got, they've left Chelsea in a worse state. I think people. Arteta may not be that guy that gets us to the Champions League or to that thing, but what he is doing, he's getting us to a stage where, he will leave our club in a better state than he found it, and that's where
Well, if he was to leave today, the club's in a miles better position than it was when he took over. I don't think that can even be debated, to be honest. That's just a fact. But I think that the hiring and firing thing, we talk about Chelsea. You're right to bring up their financial context, but Manchester United have hired and fired since Ferguson. Spurs have hired and fired. They had a period under Pochettino. It didn't work out. Got them to a Champions League final, of course. Never took them really to a title race. It never really felt like they were in it with the Leicester season. And obviously didn't win anything with Pochettino there, and then brought in a guy like Mourinho, who is obviously designed as a coach to come into a club. Every club he'd been at prior to Spurs, he'd won something. He comes into... Go on. Last word on this, because I want to get the next caller on, but keep going, Anthony.
I think the people question what Arsene Wenger did, and I think he should have left sooner than he did. But what he's done, with the stadium and the training ground, he's just left us in such a good state. If you look at Manchester United, they spent all this money, but they've not spent money on the facilities and the ground. Apparently, their training ground is falling apart. What top player wants to go into that environment? So you go into that environment, and you're probably looking around and like, I can go to, this isn't an environment I want to be in. And if you go to like people like where we are, and Spurs have done the same with their ground, and nearly every team lots of teams are like really investing in their in the training. I don't think enough is emphasised on stuff like that. Like I think a lot of Manchester United have just let everything just like rot, and that's where I think Alex Ferguson let the club down, and where Arsene Wenger is, he could have won more on the pitch, but where he has actually left us in such a he was a big driver in a lot of all that rebuild and stuff like that. But yeah, no. But I am coming to you.
I think it's an interesting point, Alistair, about how Ferguson and Wenger left those clubs. Because there's no doubt that Arsenal have been more successful than Manchester United since Ferguson left. And obviously, I think that is in part because of what Manchester United have never really come close, I don't think at all, to challenging for a title. And obviously, since Wenger left, Arsenal managed to get back up to the ranks of competing at the top of the table under Arteta, of course, sitting in a much faster period than Manchester United did after Ferguson. But Alistair, thank you for your time, mate, and for jumping on. You don't need to apologise for the background. It looks rather regal, so I appreciate that. And I'll speak to you soon.
Yeah, I'll be seeing you at the live event. I'm looking forward to the live event. Yeah,
brilliant. So I look forward to meeting you, my friend.
I think the High-Vis, your favourite kit, the High-Vis one.
I have a real fear that people going to this event are just going to wear the away kit. I really think it's just going to happen.
If people are listening and they're going to this live event, I think they should all wear the High-Vis, and we should all match with the High-Vis one.
Right. Well, I don't like this movement that's been started, but yes, I think it's going to be a sea of luminescent High-Vis. Everyone will know what events on in that place.
You have to get your sunglasses on,
Indeed. Yeah. I'll speak to you soon, mate. Have a fantastic one. I look forward to meeting you.
Right.
Thanks, Alistair, for coming on. Much appreciate time. Anthony's up next. Let's have a chat with Anthony. How are you doing, mate? You good? You well?
Oh. Hiya, can you hear me?
I can. Is there a delay? Can you hear me, or is it?
I can hear you perfectly fine. Everything's
good
fine
stuff.
with me.
How you doing, mate? You good? You well?
Yeah, not too bad. Anthony, by the way, nice to meet you. Just to give my 2 cents on it, I think this deal is very, very premature. Because the way that I see it, I'm not like most other Arsenal fans. I didn't really expect us to really put in a massive title charge and really push City all the way, let alone win it. I've always had my own personal expectations for what Arteta needed to achieve. And the season we finished 5th, I wanted him to get us back into Europe, which he did. And slightly almost overachieved, but cool. The season after that, last season, I wanted him to get us top 4, and he put us in a title charge, almost overachieved again, which is completely fair enough. And this season, my expectation was for him to get us top 4 again, win a trophy, any trophy, and, a respectable run in the Champions League. And at this point, it doesn't really look like that. The main one was the trophy for me. So in my opinion, he's underachieved this season.
So far.
And so far. I mean, if we make it to the Champions League final, I'll happily eat my words and cool. We can talk about a new contract then. But at the moment, he's underachieving. And when Arteta was first hired, I literally after about, say, 5, 6, 7 games, a friend of mine was like, Arteta might be the guy. He might win you this and that and all the rest of it. And I was like, do you know what? I don't think he'll be the guy to win us Champions Leagues, because realistically, as Arsenal fans, that's what we really want. That's the one that's missing from our cabinet.
Yeah.
But I think he will be the guy to rebuild the club and take us back to where we're, quote unquote, supposed to be. And he's done that. And to me, I think, is that the best he can do? I'm not one to say Arteta out or sack him at the end of the season if he doesn't win us this league. But the way that I'm looking at it, Ancelotti's contract runs out at the end of next season.
It's just renewed.
If we marry
that in December,
was it not a 1-year deal though?
I don't know. You tell me. All I know is that he renewed.
I heard he renewed. At first, I thought it was like a 5-year deal, and I was like, that's very uncommon of Real Madrid. But I've viewed talk shows, and I've heard 1-year deal. So obviously,
26.
if that's true, then I think that marries up nicely with 26th. So that is okay. So that's not end of next season. That's
It'll
the
be 2
season
seasons after this season.
Yeah. So, that does kind of change things. But for me, I don't know. I just don't think we should be rewarding Arteta for not achieving his goals, because this
So this is
squad
where I
is
think the
at a level.
conversation gets really interesting, Anthony, because football's really binary. It's a really kind of like black or white scenario. There's so many things in football. If you get a contract, it's seen as a reward, and if you don't get a contract, it's seen as, well, the opposite being you move on and you sack them, or of course you could say you can let their contract expire in that sense. In the world of football, you can't really allow managerial contracts if you're at this end of the table to run down to the point where you're in a season where they're going to expire at the end of the campaign, because as a club, it can be looked at as really bad in terms of planning, and especially in terms of the players you might want to sign. Where are the guarantees for the players that might be coming in that the manager that they're signing for is going to be there for the, a big portion of their contract? So people often look at the contract situation of managers as a contract is rewarding them, rather than the fact, for me, it's just a case of deciding that we're going to keep hold of him for the foreseeable. But there's no guarantee that you can't then just sack them at any point that you want to sack them. It doesn't mean you can't do that.
I mean, maybe I'm being slightly sentimental here, but I really just don't like the idea of Arsenal sacking managers. Like even when Emery got sacked, like, I admit he needed to go, but like it did kind of just rub me up the wrong way, because someone that grew up in West London, went to school right next to Stamford Bridge. Like, this was when I was in school, this was what I was arguing with other people about, like, your club is this, that, and the other, about sacking managers. So I don't really want to turn into that. I feel like it suits the class of Arsenal to kind of just let a manager run down his contract and see him off. But I completely hear what you're saying. I completely hear what you're saying in terms of like the stability and signing players and whatnot. That is really the only caveat to the argument that I'm really putting forward. But on the flip side, at this point, I'm really starting to not trust Arteta with, big transfers, because much like a lot of Arsenal fans, I really don't agree with this whole Havertz thing. I was on the brilliant transfer. But I think that one, it was kind of writing on the wall. You know what you're getting. You know what you're getting when you sign a Declan Rice. I'll take my hat off more to a Timber or something like that. But
sure,
I don't know. Timber strikes me as the kind of player that he was a fairly low cost signing. I don't think Arteta was
£38 million. I think was in our top 10 most expensive signings of our history.
Really?
Yeah.
Really? Wow. I'll have to look that up. But
to be fair, it did surprise me when I saw the numbers.
Yeah, I mean, low cost in the general stratosphere of what football is today.
Maybe not Arsenal, but in the market, sure.
Yeah. And I look at that sign and I think, was that more of a scouting job, or was Arteta like, I want this guy, he's my guy, I want him to be my only guy? Or was it he had a range of 5-6 different versatile defenders? But back to the Havertz thing, I feel like that is a deal that has massively hampered us. And yeah, we could see a Xhaka-like remontada, but for me, it really rubs me up the wrong way to bring someone like Havertz for our midfield, who has never really proven to be the kind of midfielder that we need in terms of secure in possession, good passer, can get
Who would you have signed?
Some goals. Do you know what? This is a bit of revisionism from me, but I think Alexis McAllister would have been a brilliant signing. And I think at the time we could have gotten him. Yeah, we were well above Liverpool if we had come and swooped in. I mean, you're the one that actually put me onto him, but I think Dominic Szoboszlai was one that I earmarked as well.
Don't say his name.
Seeing as he's progressed. Seeing as he's progressed, I'm kind of having second thoughts about him as well, because a lot of people, I think he's already slightly becoming a bit overrated in the Premier League. I don't think he's had the performances that a lot of people think he's having or talk like they are.
Mm.
But yeah, I don't know. Maybe like a 1-year extension could do me, but I don't know, man. I just don't feel like we're being very premature.
I think it'll be a.
this
I think it'll be a
new
2-year.
contract.
I think it'll be a 2-year extension, so it'll run through till 27 if they do renew it. I'd be surprised if it was longer than that. Managerial deals tend to be shorter than player contracts, so my guess would be 27.
Yeah,
which
yeah.
you know I'm not going to complain too much, but I think I'm on the side of right now. A contract is the right choice. And this contract has to kind of be the contract. This is the contract in which Arteta has to deliver like the big honours, as we've talked about. And if he doesn't, it probably is an indication that he's progressed us as a club back into a team that are now expecting, in the context of this league, not just the context of our history, but the context of this league, that we are a title challenger. But that is as far as he can take us. And we need to go up a level in terms of a manager to take us from a team that is expected to challenge to a team that is going to be able to win it.
Yeah. Okay. I know you've got other callers, so I'll make this quick. But I've got two.
It was a really good conversation.
I've got 2 questions for you, right? Let's say we crash out of the last 16 of this Champions League run to Porto, which would be shambolic.
Yeah, horrific.
And he does get that another contract, yeah. If we have a repeat of this season or this hypothetical next season, do you think that's grounds for him to be sacked?
What else happens this season? You'd have to tell me what else is happening.
So let's say we finish third, 7 points off the champions, right?
Sure.
Crash out of the last 16, and we know we've done horrific in the domestic cups for me, anyway.
Yeah.
Let's say we get a repeat of that in maybe a little remix, maybe it's quarterfinals, but similar levels of disappointment. Do you think that's grounds for him to be sacked?
It's a fair question. Do I think it's grounds for him to be sacked if we renew and then next season we go out of the last 16, the Champions League again, and finish behind Liverpool? Well, Liverpool, not necessarily Liverpool, but another team, because Liverpool, of course, next season
just third.
Yeah. So it could be anybody.
It could be Chelsea, it could be Tottenham, Yeah,
I think that there would be a really serious conversation
now,
to ask about, are we progressing at that point? I think you'd be absolutely fair to say and ask the question, are we progressing? Is there somebody else who, if we could move on Arteta at the end of that campaign, that is going to take us level? I think there is. I don't think I can sit here and say categorically, yeah, I'd get rid. But I certainly think if that would happen and we finished in that position, I'd be looking around and thinking and asking myself and others the question, do you think there's someone else who could take us further than what we're seeing so far, especially because he would have had another summer transfer window of which I expect us to spend money and to take the squad into a better position. So yeah, I think if we were to have a repeat of this season, hypothetically, if we crash out of the last 16 of the Champions League twice, then I think, yeah, you would be very right to ask that question about whether or not we are now on the right path or whether or not we've stagnated. I think that would be fair. Yeah. Is that a fair answer?
And my second and final question. Yeah, no, I completely understand. A bit of fence sitting, really, but okay. My final question, and given the fact that a lot of our rivals, Man United, Liverpool, are just about to go through a rebuild, Chelsea are in disarray, and Tottenham are kind of going through their own rebuild of themselves after losing the best striker in the world, in my opinion. Do you think we should now really be putting that pressure on Arteta to win the Premier League? Because I think at this moment I think Arsenal are in a really fortunate position in the sense that we're up and a lot of our rivals are down. So we can I think this needs to be a time where we pick up silverware, get names on trophies, all this kind of stuff. We need to put our name in the record books for a lot of things, because this opportunity, especially in the modern day of football, I don't think is going to come around too often. And I understand Pep and City are a juggernaut and rare tear, but what I mean by pressure is a real demand for trophies, to be honest, because this was my thing for this season.
What does that
maybe
look
you
like?
weren't the
I
same,
never know
'cause I
what that
thought-
means. When we say we need to put pressure on the manager, we need to demand. I don't know what that is. You'd have to tell me.
Okay, as in when I say pressure, I mean an absolute must for trophies, be it Europa League, be it Europa
Right,
League,
but does that
Premier
mean going
League,
to the
even
stadium
League
with a
Cup. I have a
giant
real
banner
issue
that
with.
says you must win trophies? Does it mean protest? How do you put pressure on the manager?
Well, I think it means absolutely kicking off when we exit any kind of cup competition in the early
Right.
stages. Like, for example, when we got knocked out by West Ham, I think the fan base was fairly split 50-50 in terms of me and my side. This is absolutely unacceptable. And then there were other people that were like, I don't like the League Cup isn't really a major trophy for me. I don't really care. No. I
Well,
was
I don't
absolutely
really care.
tearing my
I'll
dreadlocks
be
out
honest.
when I was hearing this, because it's driving me up the wall. So, when I talk about pressure, I mean we're not tolerating going out of cup competitions in this fashion.
Oh, have we lost Anthony?
Lisbon,
Oh,
losing
no,
to
you're
West
back. Sorry,
Ham,
Anthony, you cut out there
be
for
at
a
home
second.
or away. Like, we need to have
I think Anthony's
that.
connection
Unfortunately,
is letting him
to say
down.
the Chelseas and the Real Madrids of this world have, where it is. Oh, is it?
Yep.
Oh.
Yeah,
Is
it's
that
really
better?
letting you
Can you
down.
hear
The
me
delay
now,
has
or-
gone to about 10 seconds now. Anthony, I'm really sorry about that. If you
It's not
watch it
looking
back,
great,
you'll
is
see how much you cut out. But it's been a pleasure talking to you.
Yeah.
I'm going to have to jump to the
Yeah,
next
yeah,
caller.
it's-
I think you asked some really fair questions. I'll try and answer
Yeah,
that just briefly before you go on the pressure side of things. I still really don't know what pressure means. I still really don't know what kicking off means. I think that in terms of like where we're at, Anthony's definitely gone. In terms of where we're at as a club and how we look, what pressure ultimately means. We ask questions as fans. We still go to games. We still get behind the club. We still support the players. We ask questions. We expect people that are and have the ability to ask the questions directly to the manager to ask those questions of his tenure and what the expectations are. But I think you have to be, grounded and in some ways realistic about things. I don't know what. I'll try. Anthony, are you back? Is the connection working now? It's a huge delay. It's a really, really big delay. I can't do it with that. But I'm sorry. But Anthony was fantastic. Asked some really, really fair questions. But if you are like Anthony, asking, saying we need to put pressure, we need to kick off, etc., can you let me know in the comment section or the chat box what kicking off or putting pressure on means? I'm curious to know what that means. Let's bring on our next caller, Abdul. How you doing, mate? You good? You well?
I'm good, Tom. How are you?
Yeah, very good, mate. Very good indeed. Tell me what you'd like to talk about with this topic.
Yeah, so I'm pretty consistent. I've already mentioned it before. So basically, when we first hired Arteta, I knew that he's unexperienced. And the thing about getting a manager like that, you're taking a risk. The risk is we gotta wait until we give him enough time for him to gain that experience, for him to be competing against the high level managers. The other option is that you go ahead and you just assign an experienced manager that we are confident in that will take us to that next level. We ended up taking the Arteta route, which is fine. I mean, I get it. And like, that's what the club thought was the best decision to do at the time. I don't personally agree, but like, I can't do much about it, right? So we just gotta analyze the situation that we are in right now. So since we went that route, then we got to give him time for him to gain that experience. And it's not just like, it's not like Klopp, because we're comparing him to Klopp, which is not, because Klopp had a ton of experience. He was doing great at Dortmund.
People won't care about that though, Abdul. If I just be blunt, people
no,
won't
yeah,
care
I know.
if he doesn't have as much experience.
I'm just being realistic about the route that we ended up taking from an Arsenal perspective. That doesn't mean that we as fans agree with it, but that's what they put for us. You know what I mean? It's just like, we can't make the choice. They make the choice. We can just voice our opinions. We can be loud enough, but at the end of the day, they do what they want. So they chose that route. They think that's the best possible thing for the club moving forward. So be it. We just got to analyze the situation, right? So people need to have that understanding, whether they like it or not. That's just the reality of it, right? This is the reality of it. So you have an experienced manager who who came in, he's not just going to have to experience the Premier League or how to stabilize a team and go to that high level. He's going to have to experience everything from the start as the head manager, literally everything. It's so he has to know how to deal with Edu in terms of transfers. He has to look at the type of players that he wants, find the play style that fits him the best. See the players that he acquired from the old regime and see who he can use and not use, all that stuff, right? So that will take time. That's not just a season or two where we can be like, okay, you know what, like we're gonna hit the ground running, right? So that's why the first couple of seasons, the only reason that I was against Arteta or I wanted him sacked early on is because of his player management. I'd never liked his player management. I think that
what is it about that?
I think a proper coach, no matter how awful the player in front of you is or how big their ego is, if you can't deal with them, then I have no confidence in this coach dealing with any player that we get. Because you might
example would you use?
Yeah. So I mean, obviously Ozil's the biggest example. Like you didn't know how to and I think that was more of a club issue, honestly, than an Arteta issue with Ozil, but with Aubameyang as well. Again, there was
Aubameyang turned up late to a North London derby. I think he turned up late to a number of other,
which is
other game as well.
I
and
understand.
Returned late back from France during the COVID period as well.
I'm not saying that your star player deserves special treatment. Obviously, everyone deserves to be, but that's on the coach to deal with that kind of situation, right?
Well, he did. He kicked him out.
Well, yeah. I mean, that for me was just the easy way out. I would have liked more of like to have some sort of understanding going on. Maybe give them a couple of warnings.
I think they did, didn't they? Because he was obviously the game when he was late to the North London derby. He was taken out the starting lineup and put on the bench. When he came back late from France, I think he was taken out of the team, or he was definitely benched. Because I remember him being on the bench away. I think it was Everton that he was on the bench for.
He was definitely benched a lot towards during that time.
Are they not the warnings that you're talking about?
That for me is not a warning. A warning is when you have a one-on-one talk, a one-on-one real talk with that player, and you
How
set
do we
your
know that didn't happen though?
I mean, we'll never know, but I mean, I think that a proper coach.
If we never know, we can't use that, can we?
No,
you know what I mean?
I think a proper coach can, because I think Klopp set that example. For me, he has a lot of egos on his team, yet he was able to manage them appropriately. And the biggest ones is Mane and Mo Salah. A lot of issues going on there, but he was able to manage it. They were both assisting each other. Sometimes they were selfish, sometimes they refused to make the pass. But I feel like Klopp was able to handle that well, which is why for me, Klopp was a great coach to manage players. He builds that understanding with his players. He confronts those issues head on, and I feel like Arteta, instead of doing that, he just like kicked the players out or moved them on or whatever, which is fine. At the end of the day, that's his coaching style. I don't like it. I don't think. I think long term there might be a little bit of an issue there, because you never know the player that you're getting. When you sign this player, you don't know the implications of that player later on the team, right? If it's not going to fit your style in terms of personality, in terms of ego, again, you don't know. That's the risk. But again, that happened. That's his coaching style. He signed players that fit his system, that he has an understanding with. Great. He found his way into the team. He found his way into making a proper team, a proper, well-balanced team. Took him 3 seasons to do so. Great. No problem, right? That's no problem. Great. So far, he's been exceeding, honestly, my expectations, because I had it set that it will take him 5 seasons for us to compete for top 4. He did it in 4 seasons or 3 seasons and a half, right? So, so at the end of the day, like, it's not like he exceeded my expectation. However, right now, once you exceed that expectation, you set a whole new level of expectation. Right. So now the expectations right now have risen up. So now that we're making top 4, right, the expectation is that we're every season we're going to compete to win the title, no matter what, right? Because you made top 4, you made us, you made your fans believe that we can compete, that we can reach this level. Like, that's your own doing. You made us believe. You made us gain that expectation. So so me, when I'm going in and I'm expecting to get to win the title this season, I think that was fair from a fan perspective to expect, because we signed players to allow us to do so. Now, the excuse that I can give here is that we lost Timber early in the season, right? That happens, right? So again, Liverpool without Van Dijk barely made top 4. Things like this happen, and you have to give those excuses, and it's on what you do afterwards that matters. So far, it's been going okay. We're still top 4. Those few losses that we got, or a couple losses that we got in a row, were a little bit worrying from a fan standpoint. Like, we're just dropping multiple games in a row. Like that shouldn't be the case. But that happened. But now we went back into winning ways. Yesterday's game was pretty convincing for me. I think that the team did really, really well. I think we could have scored more. That's for sure. So maybe the team still needs to work on that finishing aspect of their game. But again, so far we're on track. I don't think the title is that far away from us. I think
No.
I think it's still there. It's still within our, like, we can still grab it if we really want to. But that's really up to the manager and the players to meet those expectations. The other thing is, we're still in the Champions League. It also depends on how well we do in the Champions League. I'm not saying that his first time in the Champions League he's supposed to win, but no, get that experience, get that exposure going into next season. That's going to be an expectation for us, because that's the one that I personally I want the most, because we've never won it.
Sure.
That one for me, I want the most. So again, just give the guy some time. But this all brings back to, should I give him a contract right now? I don't think, and this is my personal opinion, I don't think we should. And I understand your point of view that we need to have that set expectation going into the summer, seeing the direction that we want to go. I understand that, but I also understand that we're Arsenal Football Club, right? It's the manager who should want to manage the club, not us wanting the manager, right? So it should be that Arteta really wants to manage these players, wants to manage this football club, wants to make it successful. So I shouldn't be, from an Arsenal standpoint, worried about someone else, a different club, signing him or giving him a contract or taking him away from us. I think we should have that understanding that we're a big club. We gave him this opportunity, right, for him to show.
What
exposure.
about the player argument, though? From the perspective of, if we don't give Arteta a new deal, and in the summer he'll have 1 year left on his contract, you're trying to sign players on 5-year contracts, 4 or 5-year contracts, and they want assurances that Mikel Arteta is going to be the manager of them because they've been impressed by what he's done and they're signing because he's at the club, and you can't give that to them because you've not renewed his deal. How does that factor into your thinking?
Okay, so let's say by the end of the season we end up not getting top 4, because my biggest concern with this club is all of those last 10 matches is where we screw everything up. Those last 10
Where
matches.
do you think we're going to finish, out of interest?
I'm pretty sure we'll finish top 2.
Top 2, you think? Okay, so let's go on that hypothetical basis then.
Right.
Because at the moment you said you wouldn't give him a new contract. So let's say we finish top 2. Let's just say we finish second. Just I think that's where I put us at the start of the season. I put us as finishing second. So if that happens and you don't want to give Arteta a new deal, because in your argument, as a big club, we should be able to hold on to our manager. He should want to stay come the end of that tenure, and we can make a decision on that. But I'm saying we finish second, we go into the summer transfer window, and players want assurances that Arteta is going to be the coach. Otherwise, they have question marks about signing, because Ten Hag is going to be the manager at Manchester United from the looks of things. Liverpool are going to bring in a coach
100%.
that they know is going to be that coach for the foreseeable future.
Yep.
Guardiola, there are question marks, but obviously if you sign for Man City, you get the guarantees outside of just the manager, of course, that they're going to be up there competing. How do we justify to players that the manager that they want to play under is going to be here when we're not going to renew his contract until the end of a season?
Because at that point, Tom, if we did get top 2 and we do well in the Champions League, not necessarily win it, but we do well, we make some sort of splash in the Champions League, then that for me is definitely and okay for the club to tell those players, hey, Arteta's going to continue. We're going to renew his contract, and we can do that all within the summer. Give those guarantees, give all that expectation for the players coming in. My only worry, if we give it to him right now, and then those last 10 games, we drop like 4 of those games, and we end up dropping out of top 4 because it's really tight. The top 4 are all really close to each other. Like if we drop 2 or 3 more games, I think we might drop from top 4. That's just how I see it. It's the top 4 spot is very competitive this year. And like you had a team out of nowhere in Aston Villa with Emery, they're doing fantastic, right? And that's and that's what you're up against, right? So we need to have that understanding. It's usually those last 10 games every single season is where we as a club we messed it up. So I am worried that towards the end of the season we don't make top 4, and that for me is going to be huge because we already gave the manager a contract. I understand that we'll sack him later on if that's the case, but why put ourselves in that position anyways, right? We can.
Well, because of what I've said. I
understand. I understand.
I don't think you can. I don't think there is a. I don't think realistically you can be in a situation where you don't renew him, and you can expect then to sign all the players that you want to sign, regardless of how they might think about Arsenal in the long term. Because if you're a player signing for a club, you're signing for minimum 4, most likely 5-year contracts is what players sign for. And if you're signing for a club, you're typically, I would argue that the club is obviously one factor of who you're signing for, but the next biggest reason that you're signing for a club is because of who the manager is, especially at the top level.
I understand that, Tom, but let me throw this argument back to you, okay? I know for a fact if we give him a contract right now, and just like Shane mentioned in the comments, and that's one of the arguments that I was going to use against us giving him a contract right now, we won't sack him. He will not be sacked. I guarantee it. I know this club is not going to sack him.
I don't think so either.
We're going to start again next year, and we're going to have a good run at the beginning. Everything's going to be fine. We're going to be going, and Arteta has that way of talking to the management. He does give people what they want to hear a lot of times. I think he's good with his words.
Doesn't for me in a press conference.
In the press conference, he does, yeah, obviously. But I'm saying when it really comes down to it, he does give people what they want to hear. And like the beginning of when he first hired, I can tell that from the speech that he gave. He had a good understanding of what's going on with the club. He said what he's supposed to say as a newly hired manager for the club. And that was basically the first thing that I realized about him. He is good with his words. And I'm 100% sure that even if he doesn't make top 5 this season, we give him a contract this season, he will not be sacked and he will still be here. And that's just my only concern. That's one of my biggest concerns. My biggest concern is that we as a club should be bigger than the player. We should be bigger than the manager. And they should be the ones who want to stick with us because we provide that exposure for them. We're huge. Our fan base is huge, right? And just a player who joins a team, his following goes up significantly. A manager joins, following goes up significantly. And we should have that understanding, okay? So I completely disagree with the fact that we should be giving him a contract right now just in case if any club signing him. Now, the player part is definitely an argument there, but I still say we have that expectations with Arteta. If you don't make top 2 this season and we don't do well in the Champions League, then that's where we can say that
so you'd get rid.
Yeah, we'll probably not be renewing that contract.
No, I don't mean not getting. I don't mean not renewing.
Yeah.
I mean get rid, because I don't think that. I think it's one or the other. I think you either renew him or you have to get rid of him because I don't think the club are going to let him run down to a year left on his contract.
I think he will get it, but my only thing is I don't think we should guarantee him that contract yet either.
But then you're saying we should sack him.
So at that point he should be sacked. But again, is that going to happen or not?
That's what I wanted to get to. That's fine. I just wanted the answer.
Is that going to happen or not? He probably will never be sacked. Because he'll still be doing decent enough for the club owners to be like, this is good enough for us, right? And this is like we're just gonna go back to the Wenger days where we're gonna be basically just a top 4 team, right? We won't be winning the league, right? And that's and honestly, I think Wenger got screwed over with the entire system, anyways. But that's the whole different thing, whole different discussion. But we want to start winning the league, right? We want to start doing well and competing and looking to win the Champions League. And Arteta needs to show us that he can do so after showing us what he's capable of last season. He got more players this year. He signed more. He signed Havertz and he signed Rice. He lost Timber, I understand, but he still has two of his major signings, Havertz and Rice, right? And they're still in it, right? So is it Havertz that's gonna let him down? I don't know, because Rice is definitely doing a fantastic job, right?
Yeah,
should we have saved? Yeah, should we have saved Havertz money and spent it in the January window to see where we would have needed?
I don't think fans would have been too keen on that. Imagine going into the season knowing that you've saved money you could have spent this season.
100%. Again, but I also feel like Havertz was just for me, I'm still convinced he was a panic buy to just keep the fans shut up, and that we signed all.
We signed him in like July, didn't we? It was like early August.
Yeah, which is it's just a way of, again, this is just what I think is their way of telling the fans, we signed our targets early, we got who we wanted, we're ready, we're committed, and there's no need for anyone to get basically like at the back of us, or you know, just to keep the fans shut, basically, right? So for me, that worked because I was okay. So Havertz, we got him early on in the window. We're gonna see how he works, how he is, all that stuff. But so far, I think he's been okay. I think we definitely could have signed someone who would have been more impactful, in my opinion. But again, that's all up in the sky. This like you won't know, right? You'll never know what really could have happened. What happened, right? And again, I'm saying this now. Back in the window, would I have been saying the same thing? I don't know, but now that we're seeing how things are going, perspectives change a little bit. So that's kind of how it is. But like back in the window, the only thing is I was against signing him for that much. I think I would have limited him again, as I always say. 40 million signing, that would have been my way. We would have saved on that.
The Havertz deal, like obviously, I think it's a different conversation.
Yeah.
The Havertz deal is without a doubt something I question, and I think the majority of fans question the Havertz deal because of how much it was, because of the position we were in at the time, because of where we were as a club and the type of signings we should have been looking to get. I think going for a project and a revival instead of a player that was on the up and had momentum was a mistake, and I think we should have spent the money there. I don't think it's a sackable offence signing Havertz at all, because obviously we're still competing for the title, and he obviously has contributed points and goals to this season that have led us to continue that title challenge. And of course, I'm willing to give the guy time, especially because we've missed a key component of our midfield and a key component of our summer business, which was Yuri and Timber. I think Havertz will be and is right now, until he starts to deliver something different, something that Arteta is going to be hit with in terms of a stick with. But at the moment, for me, it's not decisive. Abdul, I'm going to have to move on to the next call. Right. We spent about 20 minutes together, so I gave you plenty of time.
Thanks, Tom.
I really appreciate your time, mate, and calling in as always. Absolute pleasure.
See you.
Thanks, Abdul. Please do give him plenty of love in the chat box. Always a pleasure to chat with Abdul. We're going to bring on Just Vanth now, joining us. How you doing, mate? You good, Joel? Take yourself off mute and I'll be able to hear you.
Yeah. Hi, Tom. Can you hear me?
How you doing, mate? You good, Joel?
Yeah, I'm doing good, Tom.
Good stuff. Why have you chosen to call in on this topic, mate?
Yeah, I think Mikel Arteta absolutely deserves a new contract. And I'm on all in. I'm from a Mikel Arteta fan from day one. And I'm buzzing for him to sign a new contract.
What would make you change your mind? Because I can tell from your position and the way you speak, I doubt there's very little that could. So I'm kind of, just the interviewer in me wants to kind of push you into an area in which I want to challenge that point. So what would have to change for you to change that view?
I think we had to have an horrendous season next season.
Yeah.
To reconsider it, or else I think as of now we are doing really, really, really good, and we're improving well. And I think in the summer we'll absolutely upgrade more and we'll be better with an exceptional striker.
Sorry, go on. I interrupted you. That was my fault.
With an exceptional striker and a few more reinforcements, we'll be better absolutely next season.
You were obviously listening to a lot of what Abdul said when you were backstage as well. He's got concerns over kind of where we're going and Arteta's handling of specific players. You heard, of course, as well. When you hear those that are slightly critical, I don't think Abdul is in any way an Arteta out, and I think he's raised some fair points and measured points at that. But when you hear kind of the critics looking, I can see plenty of them in the chat box. Half of them, I say half of them, 99% of them never come on the show, as you very well know, Just Van. But what do you think when you see those that would move on for him now? How does that make you feel?
I think there will be people who are concerned with Arteta's man management. But I think the way he handled Ramsdale and ESR particularly has put the fan base in meltdown.
Yeah.
But I think now ESR is getting his chances now. But I think Ramsdale won. I think Ramsdale will leave us in the summer. It'll be sad, but
yeah,
I just think Raya's just much better than him.
You think he's much better, really? What has made you think he's much better than Ramsdale?
I think I feel more comfortable when Raya plays, but I love
really?
Ramsdale.
Yeah.
I love Ramsdale, but I think I feel more comfortable with Raya. But there's no such a big difference between Raya and Ramsdale. But I still feel that Raya's distribution is slightly much better than Ramsdale.
Yeah.
And
yeah,
I think,
I've said the same thing. You know, I've said this is, and I think that Raya is a slightly better goalkeeper than Ramsdale. And in the long term, it might work out. And if we get away with the situation that we've kind of caused ourselves this season with the goalkeeping situation, which I do think is something worthy of criticism, because I think it's an unnecessary kind of battle that we created. And if you were going to upgrade on the goalkeeper last summer, you had to bring in someone that was significantly better than Ramsdale, not just slightly better, because it's created not only pressure on Arteta, it's created pressure on Raya, and I think that's led to some uncharacteristic mistakes. The mistakes he's made at Arsenal, I didn't see those mistakes at Brentford, and so I think I can, you know, to a degree, forgive him for those. I think that we will see the better, more consistent Raya, and I think we are seeing that at the moment, actually, from what we saw against Palace, and then what we saw again against who do we play? Nottingham Forest. Mine goes blank there. But the goalkeeper situation and the Havertz situation and the Smith Rowe, as you raised, they're all things that he's had to face questions about. Do you get frustrated when he kind of creates these problems for himself in some situations?
Yeah, but the Raya one was completely unexpected in the summer. No one was expecting it. But I think the Havertz one, I think still Havertz can do much better for us in the coming seasons there.
Yeah.
As you've always said, every player has 2 season rules. So the second season would be very important for him as well. And I think it's a very good option. He is so versatile and provide us that aerial threat as well. But for 65 million, that's the problem there. Or else Havertz, I think, is a decent option to have in the squad.
For sure. Just Van, it's been an absolute pleasure speaking with you. I put you on the spot with a few of those questions, and I think you handled them very well. So thank you for your time, mate.
Thank you, Tom. See you.
Cheers, mate. Speak to you soon. Massive stuff. Love that from Just Van there. Please give him plenty of love in the chat box. We're going to bring our next caller on in a second. I just want to dip into the chat box briefly. I feel like I've ignored you guys quite a significant amount while I've been chatting away. So let's just see what people are saying. G says, this is quite a heavy comment. These idiotic, impatient fans are going to screw us out of a very good coach if their voice gets loud enough. I don't know why they think we'd definitely be better off without Arteta. Careful what you wish for. I wouldn't agree with the idiotic part, G. It's always important to be more respectful when you're talking about people with differing opinions. You know, you got to be open to the idea of other people having different views if they themselves can be respectful. So, but to a degree, I see where the sentiment comes from. Abiola says, if you're not convinced that Arteta can win us a championship, who will you hire that will guarantee you that championship? He's a good young coach and he's evolving with this team. You know, for me, I still think there's more to come from Arteta, which makes the reason as to why I want to see what he's going to achieve. But I think that we've raised points on this phone-in show so far, and people have raised, but I think Anthony raised the point, and I think that we spoke earlier on about the fact that if he signs a new deal and you have him for 2 more full seasons, he's not delivered a league or a Champions League in those next two seasons, it's probably a good amount of evidence to say he's probably taken us as far as he can. Let's bring on the next caller from the Over and Over and Over Again podcast. It's Schooner Rich. How you doing, Rich? You good, you well?
Very well, thanks. Yeah, good to chat to you, my friend. Good to chat to you.
Likewise, mate. Likewise. Tell me why is it? Because I saw you in the chat box and I know where you stand on a few things of Arteta, so I wanted to get you on. So tell me where you're at with this topic.
I mean, personally, for me, I don't believe that he's the man to take us to the next level that we want to go to now. You know, he's brought us You know, he's brought us so far, and you have to say what he's done. He's done a decent enough job, but it just appears as though every single time we get in a real pressure situation where we really look like we're going to achieve something, a top four a couple of years ago, the title last season, all the domestic cups in the last 4 seasons in Europe, he doesn't seem to be able to get us over the line. Now, I'm not just saying that's just him. The players are responsible for that as well. But because this is happening season after season, I've seen nothing to convince me that he is able to make that step. You know, and maybe that's going to be the case. We don't know, but I believe that's probably going to be the case long term. 4 years and the money that he's had to spend is enough time to have put us in a position where, you know, we're not only challenging, we're going that next step. You know, we should now, with 650 million he spent in 4 years, we shouldn't be in a position where we're throwing. We should be in a position where we're throwing away the Carabao Cup or the FA Cup. I'm not saying we threw it away this year. We're a bit unfortunate to lose, but we seem to be knocked out of these competitions early every year. For what reason? I would rather win or be in the final of these cup competitions and, you know, do the best that we can in everything. We're trying to, it feels as though with Arteta, he's got this way he wants to play, which I personally don't enjoy necessarily. I thought last night's game was typical of that. That first half, we had 81% possession, not one shot on target. And that to me sums up what Arteta wants to achieve in football, which is keep the ball. Keep the ball, keep the ball, keep the ball, right? And in the end, we got the result and it was great. But there's too much of that for me. I don't know. I just feel that when the pressure's on, that is the time when you see what people are made of and you see what some of the players are made of, you see what the manager's made of. And for me, I really believe that the evidence so far suggests that when the pressure's on, he crumbles. And I thought that documentary that a couple of years ago, I thought that kind of showed maybe some of the reasons why. He thinks he's a bit of a philosopher. He thinks he wants to be a psychologist to the players. And I'm not saying that's not necessarily a bad thing, but I'm not sure if that's what you need to get your team to win when it really matters, when the pressure's on. That's when you find out about your team. And I think we've come so far under this manager, I'm not sure if he can take us to that next level, which to me, the next level now is winning trophies, isn't it? Winning the Premier League, you know, making big efforts in it. I'm not saying we'll win the Champions League, making a big effort to get as far as we can in the Champions League. I can't see he's the man to take us to that next level. And I know I know what people are going to say. They've said it to me loads of times. Who is it then? Who's the man to do it?
Yeah, people ask.
It's a risk. Every manager's a risk, aren't they, Tom? Let's be honest. And the players are a risk. You don't know what's going to work or what's not. You can look at someone and think, that'd be a good manager. It might be a flop. Emery, for example, at Arsenal. He's a good manager. He's won trophies. He came to Arsenal, it didn't work. Mourinho at Spurs is another example, you know. So you can't guarantee anything. But for me, Arteta's had four seasons now without winning a trophy. He spent lots of money. He's had all the players he wanted to buy. Yes, there's been injuries. Everyone has injuries. And he hasn't really achieved anything in terms of trophies. Now, no manager in Arsenal's history since Herbert Chapman has gone their first 4 full seasons without winning a trophy and survived beyond that. And people talk about giving him a new contract. Wait till the end of the season. If he wins the Premier League, if he goes really or far into the Champions League, maybe semi-final, final, yes, let's look at a contract for him. I'd agree. But if we just fade away, we finish maybe 3rd or 4th, we get knocked out quarterfinals, Champions League or against Porto, why would we offer him a new contract after 4 seasons of what is essentially failure by not winning? We're Arsenal. We're not Spurs. We're not West Ham. We're not anybody else. We should be winning trophies by now under this manager. And if he's not going to be able to do that now, when is he?
I think you've raised a fair argument. I would ask the question of what direction do you think he has taken in this club to this point? What direction have we moved as a club under Arteta?
I mean, if I'm honest, we went backwards initially for various different reasons. There was the COVID thing, the lockdown and getting rid of players, all that kind of stuff. So initially we went backwards and now we've moved forwards. But are we really much further than we were in the last few years of Arsene Wenger? We were finishing 3rd, 4th, 2nd. You know, we were reaching FA Cup finals.
Years we compete for the title.
Well, did we really compete for the title last season? I'm still not convinced that we did.
We led the way for 90% of it.
We had a good 19 games, exceptional 19 games. First 19 games, 50 points. That's exceptional, right? The last 19 games was just average. It was top 6 number of points, 35 points, whatever it was, right? That's not challenging for the title is getting 45 points, 40 points in the second half of the season.
Why did we crumble? What was the key thing for you that changed in that final run in? What was the key difference maker that meant that we went from a team that was playing great football and we looked resilient and we were building up really well from the back and we weren't really making mistakes? What changed for you as to why we didn't win the league last season?
I mean, I think there was a few. I don't think it was any one particular reason. I think there was a few reasons. Yes, we had 1 or 2 injuries, of course. William Saliba, we only had Rob Holding to replace him. That's a massive downgrade. Of course, that made a difference in a few games. There's no question about that. Thomas Partey as well, of course, not being fit. But every team has injuries. And what I found, the biggest reason for me why we fell away in the way that we did was because the pressure got to everybody. And Arteta as a manager, I think it got to him. And he wasn't able to deflect that away. And he wasn't able to turn that around. And once it went against us, once things started to go against us, which basically was from that Liverpool game, we were 2-0 up, and then the West Ham game the following week, he wasn't able to understand what he needed to do to change that whole mindset. And that to me was the biggest issue. Yes, you can blame the injuries, of course. Let's look at that because that's a factor. Of course it is. But
it's a massive factor,
every team has injuries. You can't expect not to get injuries. Maybe one of the reasons was because he refused to change the team, didn't he? Earlier in the season, he refused to change it, make changes.
Well, I'd argue we didn't really have loads of depth to be able to change too much about the team earlier in the season, and especially in the areas that we lost players in the second half of the season. Like, we complain about the fact that we went out of the Europa League to Sporting, but then we complain about the fact also that he played Saliba and Tomiyasu in that game, who got injured in that game, which ultimately I think is the biggest reason as to why we didn't win the league last season, is the lack of Tomiyasu and Saliba, which cost us so much depth in those defensive positions, while we ended up conceding goals, because we were still scoring goals, but we couldn't stop conceding goals. And that was the issue towards the end of the season. We conceded far too many goals.
No, absolutely. No, I agree. And I say the injuries were obviously a factor. Of course they were.
I think they're the biggest factor. I think that's the difference with me and you. Is I'd say that they are the big, categorically, had Saliba and Tomiyasu not got injured, I would be 90% sure that we win the league that season.
But based on what, though?
Based upon how we'd progressed as a team, grown as a side, changed things like beating Liverpool at home and winning again at Chelsea, and picking up points away from home in grounds that we had never done so for so many years, like Tottenham Hotspur, for instance. We were breaking records. We were scoring more goals than we've ever scored as a Premier League side. Those were the reasons why I think we would have won the league.
But yet now, this season, Saliba's played every game. Virtually, I think every single game. And look at the form we've been in recently. You know, we lost 3 games in a row. So I don't think that's the biggest factor. The players have been playing this season. Most of them have been playing this season that were missing last season. Yes, Tomiyasu's been in and out of the side, but now we've got maybe slightly more. You know, we've got rid of Rob Holding. You know, Kiwior is an option. He's not the best, I'd agree. But I think we're slightly stronger, and we haven't had the injuries yet. And yet
we have had loads of injuries this season.
No, but we haven't had those same injuries. Like Saliba's not been injured, and he's a key player.
Thomas Partey has not been fit he's had 4 games.
But Declan Rice has come in place of him, and he's almost his replacement anyway, wasn't he? When you look at the position that he plays in the team.
I think that in the long term, Rice would have taken over from where Xhaka was, and they would have played together. So the idea would be Rice and Partey playing together with Ødegaard ahead of him. So you lose Xhaka last season. It was a massive part of obviously why we competed.
Yeah.
Huge performances. He moved on because Declan Rice coming in, he didn't see, with Thomas Partey still here, the regular game time, you know, and to be honest, the abuse that he'd suffered over the years, I don't blame him for wanting a different challenge and moving elsewhere. We replace him with Declan Rice. We bring in Kai Havertz, who obviously has been a question mark, and you've heard me say my own concerns about Kai Havertz as a signing. I think it's a fair criticism to point to the club toward at this stage of the season. And I think that losing Thomas Partey, who was available for 33 games, more than any other season he's been at the club, we had him for more games than any other last season. And then this season, it changes from 33 to 4. Yes, Declan Rice has come in, but I think that the plan was ultimately very different to what we wanted to do. Liverpool obviously are also in the race this season compared to last season when they wasn't. And if we beat Liverpool at the weekend, which is a big if we beat them at the weekend, you're then 2 points behind them at the top of the table and you're still competing. So I think we have to boil back down to the question that we're asking, though, which is obviously about the renewal of the contract. I see Arsenal finishing in the top 3. I'd be very disappointed if we didn't finish inside the top 3 this season. We have to progress past Porto at a minimum. It is unacceptable to go out against Porto in the last 16, in my opinion, and if we do that and get to the quarterfinals, that'd be the first time we've reached the quarterfinals of the Champions League, I think, since 2010. That's how long ago it was since we've been in the quarterfinals of that competition.
Yeah,
So if we do
absolutely.
finish, say, third, and I think that is probably the likeliest outcome based upon where we're at right now and where I see Liverpool and City, and I think we can get to at least the quarterfinals of the Champions League. At that point, I think there is enough evidence to suggest that he's worth renewing. I don't see it as a reward, Richard. I think that's where maybe we differ. I don't see the contract as a reward. I see it as, okay, again, we competed, we progressed further than we ever have done for the last 13, 14 years in the Champions League. We need to do better in the domestic cup competitions. And this contract is your last chance to take us to a title or a Champions League. I don't think that's an unfair position to be in.
If you putting it like that, I would say maybe that's fair, actually.
Yeah.
But he's still got 2 years left, hasn't he? I think he's still got 2 years left.
He's got one more season.
Is it one more?
It's one more after this.
Okay. So I think the club are looking and thinking, and there is an argument, and I kind of get that who else can come in, right? Who else can come in and replace Arteta? Well, anybody pretty much. We're Arsenal. We're a big name. We can attract managers. Clearly we're spending money on players.
We say that, but we got Unai Emery when we replaced Arsene Wenger. Like that wasn't seen as like a huge coup. Like we were talking about Allegri.
No,
managers like this.
Yeah.
And we didn't get a big manager.
Yeah, and I do think that's part of the club's thinking is sometimes it's better to stick with the devil maybe, isn't it? And think, is it more of a risk to get somebody else in now at this point when we've invested a lot of time and money on this project, if you like? And yes, there has been progress from when Arteta came in. Of course, there has been progress, but I don't want to see under Arsene Wenger at the end. He stayed for too long and we stagnated. I don't think there's much doubt about that.
Oh, for sure.
I don't think that was. Yeah, I don't think that was just his fault. The club in the situation that we were in, for a lot of years we didn't have money to spend and stuff like that. But I don't want us to repeat that again. I want us to think, well, okay, we're in a better position now. Like you said, if we get third place this season, which is likely, second last season, that's 2 solid seasons of Premier League in a row. If we do make some progress in the Champions League, then you've got to say that's a good place to be at, isn't it? Now. I know the club are maybe thinking, let's make sure that no one can take Arteta off our hands next year. And I can understand the club thinking that. Yeah. But at the same time, I think we also need to think we're in such a good position now. If we can find a proven winning manager to move this club from here, I can see the next few years with the group of players that we've got, with some additions in there, with maybe a manager who's a little bit more flexible tactically, a little bit better man management of certain players. I think this club could go on and achieve some really great things. Can they do that with this match? That's the question that we need to ask ourselves now. Do we risk losing Arteta to a Barcelona or wherever it might be in the next year or so and think, okay, what do we do now? But get a plan in place already. Or do we say, well, okay, let's extend this contract for 2 years. And then he's got these extra 2 years then to actually prove himself and win these trophies. And I agree with you. If they do that and he hasn't won anything in the next 2 years, there's no choice. The club have no choice other than to get rid of him. Even if we finish 4th, 3rd, 2nd, whatever we finish in the Premier League, doesn't matter. If we don't win, if they do extend his contract now, he doesn't win anything for the length of that contract. He has to go.
I would agree with you. Yeah. And this is where I get sometimes frustrated because I think people get labelled. People get labelled as kind of you're Arteta and you're going to protect the guy no matter whatever happens. He's your man, whatever. It's a lot of BS because that's not true. I want Arsenal to be Arsenal are the number one. Arsenal are bigger than every single individual that is associated and within this club. Bigger than Arteta, bigger than the owners, whatever. Arsenal Football Club is the most important thing of all. And so every opinion I have and every position I put forward it's in my opinion for the betterment of the club. And so I see where Arteta was when he took us over, and I see that where we are now as a team, that he has put us into a position where we expect to challenge for the title at a minimum. That is the minimum expectation. Now we expect to challenge for the title. I want to see us be better in domestic cups than we have been because the record isn't good enough. I think, yes, we've been unlucky in the FA Cup draws with City last year and Liverpool this year. But the League Cup, even though I have my own reservations about that tournament, because the fact that Man United won it, I really couldn't care less, to be honest, about that league. I think that it's been monotonized and commercialized to the point where it's been drummed into the two-legged semi-final. All of these things, I think, has ruined the history of that competition. But the FA Cup, I look at as a major trophy that we're missing out on by not doing better in. And I think that the decision to give him a new contract, as I say, it's not a reward as per se for like, oh, you've won something, here's a new contract. I think it's a continuation of seeing what we've done, seeing that we've established ourselves as title challenge, which I hope that we will continue to do for the rest of this season. If we fall away dramatically, I'm going to be really disappointed, and then we can have another conversation come May. But at this stage, where I see us being within the chance of going, at least, well, of course, we're recording this before Liverpool play tonight, but if they, as I expect them to do, win against Chelsea, we could be within 2 points of them come Sunday. I don't think it is unfair to say a new contract isn't a reward. It's just that is the contract. That is the one where you deliver or you go. And I think he's earned that next deal.
I kind of thought that about the last contract. You remember he was given that when we blew the top four, didn't we? And he was given that new contract. And I kind of thought he's got to do something now in the length of this contract. And so far, he hasn't managed to do it. So,
well, I really think taking us from 5th to a title challenge is quite the jump as a manager to do that, to say, to take Arsenal to a position where now we finished second. I think we would have won it had we have had those two players we talked about. We won't go over that ground again. But to take us to that position in a season from surprise, to be honest, most people didn't think we were going to qualify for the Champions League that season. We nearly did, and we're very close to doing that. Last season, huge jump of progress forwards as a club competitively with the league. This season, we've beaten Manchester City for the first time in God knows how long. And sadly, some bad results have frustratingly put us into a worse position than we were this time last year. But a big result this weekend could change that. I just think that maybe, Rich, you're not giving enough credit to what he did last season. I know I empathise with your frustration that it didn't work out in the end, but maybe that has maybe undercut the progress that we did make last season.
Yeah, but it's getting the feeling a little bit, looking at the results this season, the performances this season, was that a one-off? And anybody, Leicester had a one-off season. I'm not comparing it necessarily, but anybody can have one exceptional. And in fact, as it turned out, it was only half an exceptional season, because I say the second half of last season was pretty par for the course of the previous three. But I've seen the progress, right? And we were in a great position to finish top four the season before. We blew it at the end. We were in a great position to win the title last season. We blew it at the end. And this seems to be a recurring theme. The Europa League semi-final the other year, we blew that. The Carabao Cup semi-final, we blew that after a good result away from home, and these things are recurring every single year. And yes, there's progress, but the ultimate end result has been the same. The end result is the same. That when the pressure's on, we're not able to reach the ultimate goal each season, whatever that goal is. The goals are changing every season. Of course, it was top four, then it was the league title. Now it's probably top four again. We'll see what happens on Sunday. But do you know what I mean? At some point, that's got to change. And instead of just challenging and falling away, we've got to get over the line, however we do that. And let's hope, if he's going to get the 2 seasons, then another 2 seasons, then he's got to do it in one of those 2 seasons, hasn't he? He's got to. And then I think if he doesn't, we'll all agree, we'll all be happy when maybe the time comes. But yeah, mate, you've made me look at it in a different way, saying that it's not a reward, it's more of a final
continuation.
It's
just a final for me,
maybe a final chance.
Yeah. That's what I see it as. And I think that's maybe where people misconstrue my view, is that it's not a case of Arteta or nothing, and that I defend this guy until the nth degree. It's not that. It's a case of, I think since he's taken over, we've moved in one direction, which is forwards, and we've kept on going to that next step. Even though I know we went slightly backwards at the start, I think that was a result, as you alluded to. There was a lot of factors as to why that happened, with the overhaul, COVID, there's players that we lost, and then obviously trying to rebuild things from scratch. And I think that moving where we have done, we've only gone upwards and go forwards. And I appreciate you, by the way, recognizing the point that I've tried to get across, because I know that we can have a back and forth on Twitter now and again about certain topics, but I appreciate that you've seen it in that different way. It's not a reward. This is the contract for me. This is you deliver or you go. And I can't
agree with that.
There is no justification in the world if Arteta gets a new deal and that runs until, well, I'd imagine 27. So it would be 3 years, because I don't see it being I don't see them extended by just 1 year. It will be a 2-year extension, is what I would expect. So that's to 27. If in that contract he's not able to take the club forwards, which would be to win a Champions League or a title, absolutely Arsenal should be saying we are stagnating. And so, therefore, we need to go and find somebody to take us on that next step. I don't think that's unreasonable. I think to argue a point of, if we don't win the league or the Champions League during Arteta's next contract, he deserves another one. I just don't think there's an argument for that, to be honest.
Yeah, no, I'd agree 100%. I 100% agree with that. Yeah, absolutely.
There you go. Rich, I really appreciate it. Any final thoughts? I don't want to take you away before you've said everything you want to say.
No, I mean, to be honest with you, I think we've covered it all, really. I mean, I still don't believe that the next 2 years are going to make any difference to what we've seen in the last 4. Personally, I hope I'm wrong. I hope we go on and win stuff, and I hope Arteta can do it. But I just don't believe it's going to happen. Personally, I don't believe it will. But let's see. If he gets the extra contract, he's got a little bit more time, and maybe we'll have to give him that more time to get things right that he needs to, put things right, and make sure that we do win some trophies, because that's what we should be doing.
What you said there is key, Rich. The words you said when you said, I want him to do it. I don't think he can, but I want him to do it. That's the key for me. That they're of Arteta's critics, which I know that you are one of, you're the critics I want to speak to, because it's the people that want the best for the club, want Arteta to prove them wrong and to go on and do things, but will hold him accountable if he doesn't. And that's what I appreciate. So, Rich, thank you for your time. Give your channel a shout out, by the way, as well.
Yeah, it's over and over again. I've got a show tonight actually at 7:30, looking back on last night's game. So if you're free, pop over for that. But yeah, really appreciate coming on, Tom. Actually, really appreciate chatting to you. It's always a pleasure, and look forward to chatting again.
Thanks, mate. I'll speak to you soon.
Cheers. Take it easy.
Cheers, Rich. You can find him, as he says, at the Over and Over and Over Again Arsenal podcasts. Make sure you go and check it out and subscribe if you haven't done so already. We have no more callers on my screen. I was going to go on a little bit longer, but we don't. I might give it a few more minutes. I might take some of your questions. Basically, if you call in now, you will get on. I was going to go until 7, but if people are having their dinners or coming home from work, I can understand that and appreciate that. And I wanted to highlight JC says fair play to Rich for recognizing that, and I hope that came across at the start of that conversation. I could see the chat box was getting a little bit emotional, a little bit of pushback towards Rich's comments, which I understood, and I hope that you recognize that I pushed back on those points as well. But I think it was really important to recognize sometimes when you are a critic, that to look at the other point of view and maybe recognize where it's coming from. And I think we managed to do that. We have got a caller. Lai's joined us. How you doing, Lai? You good, Joel?
I'm good. How are you doing?
I'm doing very good, mate. Where are you joining us from?
From Valencia, Spain.
Really? Oh, interesting. It's a city I always have wanted to visit. So
it's a beautiful city.
Indeed. It's a shame. I say it's a shame about the football club because Peter Lim has basically ruined that club.
Oh, my goodness.
But they're doing okay compared to previous seasons. So we'll see if it improves. Why have you chosen to call in on this particular topic, mate?
I mean, so, I missed the earlier parts of the call-ins and the discussion, so I don't particularly know what people have talked about so far. But I just wanted to come in and just say, for me, I'm not particularly Arteta in or out.
It's horrible. What is the obsession with naming ourselves? Like we did it with Wenger, like you were an AKB or a WOB. Like, why did we have to do that? It's such a weird social thing that we do.
It is a weird thing, and everybody, kept being put in boxes. It's almost like when I watch different folks talk, different talking heads, YouTube folks talk about the team and all that. And I mean, the vitriol to me is uncalled for. I mean, it is football, it is important, but it's also not important. Like, let's bring it down a little bit. Let's talk about it. Let's try and talk about it rationally. So for me, I like Mikel, but I'm also open to the conversation that he may not be the right person. I mean, because obviously, he hasn't done it before. And the most important thing for me is I'm pro Arsenal. I've supported the team for so many years. So that's the most important thing. So if you want to have the conversation about whether or not he should get a new contract, first of all, a lot of what I've seen out there seems to be kind of punitive, as if to say, no, don't give him a contract until he can until he can do something until the end of the season or something like that. And what that fails to realize is that can actually be counterproductive. It's almost like you put, somebody's under so much pressure that you either do X or you're going to get fired. I don't know many people that can work under that kind of pressure.
Yeah, I don't. I get asked that all the time as well. It's like, if Arteta finishes here, would you sack him? If he does this, would you sack him? And I'm like, I don't know, because I don't know what's led us to that point. It might not be anything to do with Arteta. We could have lost half the team to injury and we finished 7th. And I'm like, well, everyone was injured. We were playing with the under 18. You don't know what's going to happen. So how can I say an answer?
Exactly. So there goes the point. And that is one part. And then the other part is, even if you give him the contract, you can always still let him go. Like I'm a lawyer by trade, so I understand how these contracts work.
Oh, I'm worried
You,
now.
you can you can always amend the contract, you can cancel the contract, whatever the case may be. You can do whatever you want with the contract. So that doesn't really mean anything. Like the question is, have you set certain deliverables, and is he meeting those deliverables? That is truly the question. And you go from there. But for a lot of our folks, man, it's kind of like we tend to have these infantile discussions about it's kind of similar to, are you going to buy somebody? Yeah, you're not going to buy somebody. I'm like, geez, like bring it down. Like
Head you out. Yeah.
Exactly. So just as it is with a lot of our players as well. For instance, if you told me today that Saka is going to go tomorrow, my question for you is, then what are we going to do? Are we going to replace him? If you say, okay, we're selling Saka or Martinelli and bringing Mbappe, I'm having a conversation with you. I'm like, okay, that sounds good. If you say, you're going to sack Arteta tomorrow and you bring in, my question for you will be, who would you replace him with? Like,
Yeah.
if you said, well, Klopp is going to come, I mean, okay, I mean, that
100%. Like, if we finished in a poor position this season, you said Klopp's taken over, be my guest. Like,
exactly. I mean, that's a conversation that I will have. Like, it's almost like it's not just a question of sack the guy. It's there is a conversation, as you were saying with the last caller, there is a conversation to be had around, he took us from one place to another. Now, sometimes the person that takes you from point A to B is not going to be the same person that takes you from B to C. And that happens all the time, even outside of football. Like, when you have companies out there, the person that starts a company is not the person that builds a company to more than 1,000 employees. So at some point, somebody might have to say, you know what, you've taken us as far as you can. And it's not about a failure or anything. It's just a question of, you have a different skill set. We need somebody else to come in and do this other stuff. So that is where I am with all of this.
So I sense that you're on board. I think the Arsenal are going to renew his deal, and I sense that you'd be on board with that plan.
Yeah, I mean, I'm on board with the plan again, simply because the fact that it has a deal renewed doesn't mean that if we lose the rest of our games this season, you can't change your mind and say this is a disaster. Now you got to go. Like, it could sign that contract today. If we don't win any other game until the end of the season, do you think anybody's going to say, we shouldn't reevaluate that? Like, why did that happen? So yeah, I'm on board with that. And quite frankly, there is there are two reasons why you could say that we should do that. One is to give the manager needs some sort of certainty as well. That's one. Two, can you imagine the kind of distraction that would just be around there? I mean, this whole thing with Barcelona and all of these other teams going around. Like, if you just want to quiet that out and just have the team just focus, you don't want media chatter and all of that stuff, kind of like, So yeah.
No, I think you raised a fair point. I think we kind of align right now is that a continuation of Arteta. I hate the idea, the contract, giving someone a new contract, I think being labelled as a reward, I just don't think is the right way to look at it. I look at it as a continuation of Arteta's tenure. I see it as you said earlier on when we went all lawyer, which I can appreciate. You can cancel a contract whenever you want, or obviously you'd have to pay the manager off, as Chelsea know all too well about. If you want to fire him, you fire him if you don't think he's the right person at the moment. But extending his contract, we're not locking ourselves in. Like, it's not committing yourself. We have to see out this contract. It's just for now. I think that the benefits of signing a new deal and extending until I'd imagine 2027 is the right move, because I think Arteta's only taken us in one direction really, which is from a place of being nowhere near challenging for a title to be in a position of now challenging to a title. Any players that we want to sign in the summer will have the assurance that the manager that they're signing for is indeed extended beyond the end of that current season that they've signed for, which of course for Manchester City next summer is going to be an interesting one, because Guardiola's deal expires at the end of the following season. So therefore, are they going to be able to sign players with the assurance that Pep's going to be there, unless of course he does renew? And of course there's all the alleged charges that they've got to deal with that investigation also. And I think that ultimately there's not enough evidence to suggest that there is someone else out there at the moment that's going to come in and take us further at the moment than Arteta is, and it's not worth continuing. But final thoughts, Lai, before you jump off.
I mean, just the general conversation about Arsenal. I mean, I don't know. This must be the most controversial team on earth. Like it doesn't matter. Like we could be top of the league, we could be bottom of the league. Like sometimes, man, my message to everyone out there is just look, regardless of what end of the table that you're on, like please let's bring it down a little bit. I feel like the vitriol is just getting more ratcheted up and ratcheted up. I mean, I don't know. It doesn't even have to matter what the subject matter is. Give you an example. We won 5-0 last week. A lot of the commentary, I mean, I don't know if I would say majority, but a lot of you would think we lost. I'm not saying we have to be totally, positive. As some people would say toxic positivity, but my goodness.
We beat Palace 5-0. People moaned. We won at a ground we've not won at in the last 3 attempts. People moaned. Like it's incessant and infectious, and it's boring beyond anything else. Is the moaning?
It is incredible. Like I'm like, and there was this talk about we didn't score from open play. We didn't break them down. It wasn't easy. I'm like 5-0. You didn't score from open. Who cares how you score? Like they not count. Like we played against other teams that scored from. Oh, we only scored from set pieces. When did set pieces not count? And I mean, I went back and looked at the stats. Right, we are by far the number one team that had the most corners in the league. I'm like, so why would
our XG is also, and I know people don't like me going into stats, but it's worth it because yes, I think we've underperformed this season, but we've not underperformed in the sense of we've played badly. We've underperformed in the sense of we've not fulfilled what we are creating, and we're creating that of a side that should be scoring far many goals. If we weren't creating, and I remember the season in which we finished 8th and the season we finished 5th, we weren't creating enough. Like we weren't doing enough to even give you a sense that we were going to be going on to bigger and better things. This season, we have just underperformed what our expectation of our numbers that we should be creating is. And that's, in a way, frustrating, but also encouraging because you know that we can be better.
It is. And that is absolutely correct. And then the whole thing about, we throwing away cups and all of this stuff. And I'm just like, look, everybody just bring it down, man. Like, let's calm down a little bit. Yes, there are so many things that we could criticize the team for, that, and, will be totally justified. But my goodness, we don't have to get so lazy about what we want to talk about and just listen to some people and nitpick and repeat the same thing over and over, as if to say there is nothing positive going on. We are tied with City right now, right? Okay, given
at the time of recording.
Exactly. Given they have the game in hand and all of that stuff, but we still have some ways to go. We just need to keep at it. Like that's it. That's all I've got.
Right, it's been an absolute pleasure to speak with you, my friend. Thank you for tuning in.
Thanks for having me.
I'll speak to you very soon.
Bye.
Fantastic stuff. What a legend Lai is. We've got 2 more callers for you before we wrap things up. First of all is Diallo. How you doing, Diallo, my friend? You good? You well? I can't hear you. You got yourself on mute. You've pulled yourself a Drew. You've done a Drew. There we go.
You know what? I was actually thinking too much about unmuting and then I forgot.
It's always the way. You are far from the first person to do it. So I do it. Tell me where your head's at with this Arteta topic, mate.
Oh, man. I think we are probably looking at it from the wrong angle, in my view. Okay. I think what we should really ask ourselves, and I will answer your question, Tom. I will always answer your question. I think the main question that I'm worried about is, or that I'm concerned about, is who holds the leverage? Who actually has the leverage here? And I actually don't think the leverage is with Arsenal or the Kroenkes. I think Arteta holds a lot of leverage here. I think the question we should ask is, will Arteta sign? Like, he will definitely sign a new contract.
So you're looking at it from the other perspective. You're concerned that he might not actually renew his contract.
Oh, he might renew a short-term contract, like a short one, like
a 1-year extension.
I think
that would be very telling, wasn't it? If he signs a 1-year extension, that raises eyebrows. That really does raise eyebrows if it's
And
a 1 year.
I think about it. His last contract was what? Was for me that was surprisingly short. If you ask me, for like a rookie, for like he was considered a rookie, and some people still call him a rookie. I don't, but that contract, his last contract for me, that was surprisingly short. I was expecting something like 5
years. 2 year extra.
Exactly, 2 year, and I think that was him. I think the Kroenke would have given him a 5 year contract if he accepted.
You know what's interesting though about that, Diallo, is actually I think of it the other way. I think actually Arsenal giving Arteta a 2 year extension was actually the owners being like, you don't run this. I know you've taken us this far, but we're going to give you a 2 year, not a 3 year or 4 year or 5 year. So I actually look at it differently to you. But I think that you have credence in your point, and I think you're fair to raise.
That is interesting. Maybe we can flesh this out on the next phone call, because I know you kind of have to go soon on that particular point about that particular contract. But I actually genuinely think that Arteta would be very reluctant to sign a long-term contract, and I think that is to his benefit. I don't think Arteta wants to leave Arsenal, by the way. Don't misconstrue this as me saying he would run out or he would jump ship the moment another opportunity comes out. I think it's for him to hold the leverage. Him signing this shorter contract, and I think he will sign a contract, and I think it will be another 2 years or something like that. I think it's for him to basically always hold the card on the Kroenkes. I don't think the Kroenkes are that like long-term oriented, whereby they would be thinking strategically about like the next manager and all that stuff. I think they would give him a 5 year contract in a heartbeat right now, because I don't think there are many managers out there that would be available, that would be objectively better than what they currently have. And I think he's doing a lot of the heavy lifting for them in the club. So I think he is actually playing his cards well. I think he would only sign a short contract. And I think about it, Pep Guardiola, he's been at City for a long time. I think there is only one job that would take Arteta out of Arsenal right now, and that is the City job. I don't think he will go to Barcelona currently as it is.
No, neither do I.
But if Pep, for some reason, because Klopp is gone, and maybe he wins. Let's say he wins again the Champions League this year, or like a Prem, and like
we can't win the Champions League; they're not in it.
No, Pep. I'm saying.
Sorry, Pep. Yes, sure.
Yeah, So if he does, let's say like he achieves another another great season, he might just say, you know what, I'm done. I'm gonna go and manage Spain and whatever. He could easily. He has no reason to stay at City other than money. He's won it all and he's having a great time. So he could easily decide to leave. And then I think that is the only position that would tempt Arteta. So I think we should really think about it the other way. I think Mikel might actually not want to sign a long contract. I think Arsenal would want to give him a longer contract, because I see what all you said is about the security, and I agree with Lai. He can sign a 10-year contract. They can sack him the next day. Like, think about this, Tom. We've spent more. Expensive. Yeah, but we've spent more on Fabio Vieira or Sambi Lokonga than we have spent on Arteta since he started. If you really do all his wages since he came to this club,
that's a crazy stat. I love it, but yeah.
So I don't think it's a lot of money for the club to like give him like a 5 year contract and sack him like in 6 months if things goes really bad. I don't think that's a big loss of investment. I think the bigger one would be if they don't do that and he then becomes because think about it, he's manager or whatever, the person who runs his contract, Arteta, his agent would obviously be talking to Arsenal about raising his salary.
No, of course, that's just what happens. Yeah,
but he would also be talking with other clubs as well. And what if?
Maybe. Maybe. Arteta would be very keen to avoid any of that being, in Arteta's mind, as he spoke about in that press conference, his mind is on Arsenal. He's only focused on Arsenal. He's only thinking about Arsenal, and I believe him. But I think we'd be naive to think that, eyes don't wander, and that clubs don't approach managers behind the scenes. It happens all the time. I don't know it for fact that it's happened with Arteta, of course, but I think it'd be naive to expect that not to happen.
Exactly. So I think that's another angle to look at it. I think we think that the club is the one that sacks and fires, but I think Arteta might actually be playing his cards very well, and he would probably only sign a short contract, and I think that's a good way for him to do it, because then it kind of forces them to keep backing him. I really do.
Yeah.
So man, that's kind of how I'm thinking about it. I love Arteta. I think he has a lot of promise. It's like I see him like I see Saka. There's a lot of potential. You know, there's a lot of
Yeah, no, I see what you mean. Yeah.
you know, so I would hate losing him. Like it would really, like losing Arteta for me would be like would be a big, because I can't see a better. I mean, Pep, give me Pep today, then maybe I will be even that would kind of struggle maybe for a few weeks, but that's the only appointment that would make me like comfortable with if we lost Arteta. So I would want him to sign a long contract.
Diego Simeone, Diallo. Is that what you're saying? You don't want Diego Simeone at Arsenal? Oh,
it's not about the destination, Tom. It's about the journey.
Oh, okay. I think it's about both. I think that's a bit of a stretch, but you know,
it's about the company. Remember in the documentary, you know.
Diallo, I really appreciate your time. It's always an absolute pleasure to speak with you, my friend, and I hope you jump onto the next one as well.
Take care, man. Take care.
Thanks, man. Have a good day. Lovely stuff. Always a pleasure to speak to Diallo. And yes, we will end the show with a semi-familiar face. It's Mr. Albert from Albert JTV. How you doing, mate? You good, Joel?
Not bad, Tom. I just strolling through YouTube to see you pop up. Well, you know what? You're talking Arteta. I know it's probably been a bit quiet for the last hour and 54 minutes. So
yeah, no one wants to talk about Arteta.
Thank you, Tom, for having me on, man. Love, man.
Of course, mate. Of course. Where I don't know how much you've heard of. Obviously, you said you're listening a little bit later on.
Right, of course, right.
But where do you stand on a new contract for him?
I remember the outrage when the talk came up last time.
Yes. It was like it was. No one thought we'd challenge for the Champions. No one thought Arsenal would get top 4 that season. We very nearly did, and as I say, for me, like I'm so looking at like 80% of the reason why we didn't was because Saliba and Tomiyasu got injured at the end of that season, and if they were fit, I think we would have done. But yeah, when he signed that new, everyone was like, "Oh, we've jumped the gun there." I don't know about
that. they lost their mind. So I actually think it's maybe I'm been living in the twilight zone, but I actually think it's been pretty quiet since the talks came up. Because you kind of touched on it when you mentioned a certain manager's name before the last caller. There's always a manager out there, right? For a club, whether you as a fan or whether you want a particular manager at the club. It doesn't really matter to me. There's always a manager out there. But in terms of Arteta, with the contract thing, Tom, I'm not really surprised, to be honest with you. And that's the first thing. For those that vehemently don't want him at the club for whatever reason, they feel that he's not good enough, or they don't see the progression, or he's had 4 and a bit years, and yada, yada, yada. There's so many different reasons as to why we shouldn't have him at the club. But there's also, Tom, there's actually, on the flip side of it, he has quite a cult following, man. I'll put it to even to the days when we had Özil. Like there was fans that just
really,
like that. He can't do no wrong, but that's just you know.
I don't know.
Tom, you know what it is, Tom.
I know what you mean.
Yeah.
But I've not come across. I know people think I'm in that group. You know.
Yeah, I don't know.
I get plastered as like Arteta can do no wrong all the time because. For obviously the other end of the spectrum, which is, you know, heavily Arteta outside of things, anybody that says anything positive or praising or defensive about Arteta is just labelled immediately as, you know, someone who never ever could criticise the guy. So
I find that odd, Tom, like when because
I've seen enough, Albert.
No, I know.
You know our fan base.
No, because I've seen enough. No, I've seen enough for you talk about Arsenal and Arteta, and I've seen a lot more people who are very, as I use the word, cult following behind him. Like, there is. He has that kind of
names.
No, I'm not. You're not going to do. No, you're not going to do me like that, Tom. You're not going to. I'm not sure. You're not going to do me like that. But like, you know what it is. I can want that with me, Tom. I have this thing, right? Whether it be managers or players, I don't really have the sentiment thing, man. Like, if you're a manager that comes to the club or you're a player, I want you to do well first and foremost. Because ultimately it's not my decision if the Cronkies move him on. So, you know, managers come and go. Yes, you know, some people hang this thing over the head of him where, you know, when he played for us, he didn't play in a good era. I'm like, well, that doesn't really matter about his coaching credentials for me personally. That's a separate argument. I've never really understood that. But Tom, like I said, I'll come back to what I said. I wasn't surprised he's been talking of the contract extension. Obviously, a certain job has become available at Barcelona. That will come back round again. That honestly, and I generally think, and I think with that, that's just a timing thing.
Yeah, probably it's inevitable, isn't it? He'll probably end up there one day. Yeah.
But he didn't seem particularly very happy with some of the questions he was getting from. I think the guy was from Sky Sports that was questioning him. Actually, I'm sure it was him. But yeah,
I think it was Gary Cottrell.
That's it.
Asking the question.
They weren't bad questions, but I can see why.
No, I quite like Gary's way of questioning. It gets quite funny. I love it. I do think he's quite good in the
Tom, you see me speak about Arteta. I've never been kind of bowled over, or I'm not sort of the other way where I want to hammer him when we don't win certain games. So he did listen when we had the documentary about him, the Amazon thing. I did like him a bit more. I've got to be honest. Some of the things he was saying, I couldn't stop laughing, but maybe that's just me. But it's a strange one because I see a lot of vitriol towards him, and as much as you can talk about recruitment and some of his in-game tactics management, like I had you on my channel, Tom, for the second time, and
we had TV. Make sure you go and subscribe, people.
Oh, thanks, Tom. But it's an interesting topic whenever we talk about Mikel. And it's almost a case of if we got rid of him, Tom, for example, right? You said to me, Albert, give me a name where who you want as a potential replacement. Tom, I haven't got a clue. I absolutely haven't got a clue. We've had some very, very good managers managing in this country in the Premier League who haven't done well at certain clubs, big clubs, should I say?
Yeah, I mean, look at Ancelotti at Everton. I mean, Everton are a big club. When he took over at Everton, it weren't the Everton that we're looking at now. It was an Everton that wanted to get back into the Champions League and didn't get close, didn't get anywhere near.
Yeah, but no, it's listen. Like I said before, it's he's gonna get. It'd be interesting to see the length of contracts. I don't know if you've heard anything in the grapevine.
No, I haven't, mate. So that's what I get. I'll tell you what I'm told. I'm happy to tell you what I'm told. I'm told that they're very calm about it, and that it's not like I know there's been suggestions. Some people are saying that he's already signed it. I've certainly not heard that. I've just signed. They're very calm about the Arteta situation. That's what I'm told, anyway.
I think it's probably like an extra 2 more years, I'd say probably.
I think so. As I was saying to Diallo, like if it's a 1-year extension, that's so interesting. Like if it's a 1 year, that'd be really intriguing. If it's a 3-year, I think it's equally as intriguing, slightly worrying. I don't want a 3-year, I want a 2-year. 2-year, I think, is the perfect length for the next contract.
Yeah, I mean, like for example, like in regards to yesterday's game, I mean, I listened to some of the callers before. Actually, it's quite funny. I actually thought we played. I actually thought we played well, to be honest with you.
It's because we did, Albert.
Yeah. Like, So I was quite. No, actually, that's a lie, Tom. I wasn't quite surprised by some of the reaction because, I don't really know what they. I don't really know what they want. We went to a ground yesterday where they're a bit of a bogey side for the last 3 times we've gone there, and they deservedly beat us. We ain't particularly played very, very well. We dominated possession. We should have probably got a goal before half time. And Tom, you know what? People talk about chances created. Last couple of games we've got how many goals now from open plays? Is it 4? So set pieces. Martinelli bagged the brace. That was an open play. Trossard bagged the goal. That was open place. That's 3, and we got 2 yesterday. So the set piece thing is obviously a positive, but I mean, I don't know what Arsenal fans kind of want really. I
think they want us to win a title or a Champions League, and I can't begrudge them of wanting that. What I can begrudge is them saying if he doesn't do it this season, he deserves to be sacked. I can begrudge them of that because I don't think it's soon enough to have that demand. I think that if he was to sign a new contract this season, it has to be, as I was saying to Rich earlier on, it has to be the contract. That is the contract where you have to deliver a Premier League title or a Champions League title. And if he doesn't do that in the next contract, then we've stagnated. And he's shown that he cannot take us any further than he's taken us. And so that's when I think you have to look at who's going to take you to that next level. And I don't think that's too unfair of a demand.
No, because I think you asked me, like I said, I always say this, I think you asked me probably, 2 seasons ago now, whether I think I could see him as leading us to a league title, Mikel Arteta. I said no. I did say no. I just felt I said this time on my channel actually. Not when you came on that.
I'm plugging it again.
No. I don't know. I'd have to go through the history books, and people in chat can probably tell me. But I don't know too many managers who, in their first job, within the first 4 years, have won a Champions League in the Premier League, or a Champions League or domestic or domestic league in their country. I don't know too many. I get the pressure. I get it. Arsenal fans. Me and Tom are both Arsenal fans. We want to see more European trophies. We want to see a Premier League because it's been too long. I don't know too many managers that have done that within a 4-year period. Listen, I'd love for him to get over the line for many different reasons, but one, because it's more silver at the club, and I think particularly European-wise, Tom, for a finish up, I think when you win in Europe, I think as a club, it just knocks you up a few more echelons and a bit more respected throughout world football. And I think that's very important for this football club.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think Arsenal can never ever allow some individual to ever become bigger than the club. That happened with Arsene Wenger at the end of it, and it took far too long to move on. So we'll see. Albert, I've got to bring the phone into an end, I'm afraid, because I've got my dinner waiting. So I've got to go.
So one more quick thing.
Yes.
I find this a lot. Even when I do streams, it just randomly comes up in the chat. Are you when are you going to get to a point where you're finally Arteta out? And I'm like, like you're asking me about doing a watch along. I don't understand what you want me to say. It's crazy.
What would you? What? I'm going to push you. What would you say if you were really pushed on it?
Well, at the start of the season, I said that for me, it's important. I think you get a trophy, man. There's a big difference between progression and success, Tom. I think they're very different. And success is obviously trophies. Progression is going from not being in Europe top Champions League for 7 or 8 years to going for a title challenge. That's progression. But I want success. So he's got 2 trophies to win, Tom. Will it happen? Ask that question in March.
I don't think so. I don't think he'll win the Champions League or the Premier League this season. I desperately hope that he does. I don't think he will. And I think that we've got a far better chance next season of winning a trophy. And that is why I would renew it, because I think we've only moved in one direction under Arteta, which is from a place of being nowhere near challenging for the biggest honours to a place where now we do compete for the biggest honours. But we've now got to show that we can indeed win them. And that's what that next contract is about. This is you establishing yourself as a potential Arsenal legend from a managerial perspective by winning Premier Leagues and Champions Leagues, as Klopp and as Guardiola have done, or you establish yourself as somebody who looked like they might, ultimately took Arsenal to a better place and became the step ladder for the next guy who is meant to be the one that takes you to that place. So that's what I see Arteta as. He's either the guy or he's the guy that takes us to the guy. That's what Arteta is to me at the moment. And I'm just not sure which one it is yet, but I think the next contract will tell me.
Same here, Tom. I totally agree, mate. I totally agree.
Albert, always a pleasure, my friend. Give your channel a 15th shout out if you would.
Thank you. I'll take that as a backhanded compliment. People, Albert JTV. I have my own channel. Please come and subscribe and look at content. Yeah, I do, Tom. I do.
Yeah,
and I'll even get Tom to come a few more times as well. But the Twitter handles will be below as well, so people come and check me out and hear my views about the beloved Arsenal.
Lovely stuff. Make sure you do. Albert JTV. There you go for the 77th time. You've heard it now. You know where to go. There's no excuses. You can go watch my show with him on Albert JTV. 2 days? Was it 2 days ago? Sunday. It was
Sunday morning, breakfast time.
Sunday morning. Yeah, there you go.
Beautiful.
I will speak to you soon, mate. Look forward to it. Are you going to the game at the weekend?
I've not got a ticket yet.
If
I don't, then it will be a watch along time. I'll be happy. I'll be either way.
Down, mate. I saw you doing a watch along on Judge's channel.
I did a joint on my channel and his. Yeah, it's brilliant. Love it.
Me. Why is Judge so lazy he can't do it himself? It's just unbelievable.
Well, I mean, he does. Has a lot of commitments at the games and stuff. Just you know what, mate? I don't mind. I don't mind doing it if you said out. Thanks, Albert. Yeah.
Fair enough. Fair enough. This is mutual love for Judges always. I'll catch up with you soon, mate.
Right, take care, mate.
Take care, fella. Thanks to Albert, and thanks to all of our callers from today. Really do appreciate all of it. I think this is, I genuinely think this might have been the best phone-in we've done so far. We had some really good calls. We had differing opinions. We had respect across all angles. Anthony and Rich and Leo, to an extent as well, didn't agree. And yet we had some really good conversations. And that was great to see. So it was always going to be that the trolls in the chat box, they're very, very loud when they have a keyboard attached to their hands. But when it comes to a microphone and a camera, it's just one step too far. I enjoyed this comment in particular from Josh, who says, blocked because you don't agree with my opinion. How could he be blocked if he's put a message in the chat box? It's beyond me. The trolls have just a level of ability I'd never assumed they did. But this has been a genuine pleasure. Please do tune into tomorrow mornings. I'm not sure if there's going to be a show at 8 a.m. because, as I say, I'm working from 8 a.m. on deadline day. I might be able to pre-record something that's going to be something of a deadline day predictions, which is basically me saying, I don't think we're going to sign anyone. But that will be what it will be. Maybe my thoughts actually on Lino Souza, who is joining Aston Villa on a permanent deal, and Bradley Ibrahim as well from the youth team is joining Hertha Berlin, according to Simon Collins of the Evening Standard. So maybe I'll do a quick show pre-recorded to go out at 8 about those two. So yeah, look out for that tomorrow. Otherwise, there will be another phone-in show tomorrow at 6, talking all about the transfer deadline day, about the January transfer window. So do tune in if you've not been able to get on the show tonight. Try tomorrow for the phone in to talk about Arsenal's deadline day frustrations, which I'm sure is what it's going to be. Maybe some of the keyboard warriors in the chat will show up. I guess we'll have to wait and see. Have a great day. Stay safe, stay well, stay happy and respectful. And as always, up the Arsenal.